All right, 5 o'clock, we're going to call this meeting of the Community Development Committee to order. I ask the audience to please quiet down. Thank you. We'll start this with roll call.
All right, Ryan Shirley,
Present.
Jerry Van Zomeren, Scott Counter,
Present.
Carrie Rice,
Present.
Sean Anderson.
Present. All right. Are there any comments or additions or corrections to the minutes of the previous meeting? Seeing none, we'll let those stand as is. We'll now move on to public comment. Again, I'm going to ask that if you're here to comment on any of the 3 public hearing items or on the Xcel Energy and the potential joint development agreement, I ask that you wait till those business items are up. On all of those, we're going to hear a report, and then there will be a public comment section for those items individually. So with that being said, I have 1 public comment card for things that are not any of those 4 items from Bud Fuchs.
Okay, you caught me unprepared. I've never been first before. You got to give me a moment to get my reading glasses on before you set up the timer there. Okay, here we go. Dear members of the Community Development Committee, thank you for reopening a discussion on Chapter 11 of the Ordinance on Manure Storage Facilities. I support an amendment to Section 11.3 D2A5 to better protect the property rights of landowners whose lands are included in the nutrient management plan for a new or expanded manure storage facility by requiring that all land application agreements must be made with the landowner and not just the renter or operator. This will safeguard against the situation where land is used without the owner's knowledge for an activity that causes harm for which the landowner then has legal liability. I can foresee a situation where an activity could cause a fish kill, and the landowner would be responsible to reimburse the DNR for the value of the fish killed for an activity which had been conducted without their knowledge or approval. The value of the dead fish could be tens of thousands of dollars. The landowner would likely be extremely unhappy with a county ordinance that failed to protect their property rights and could take legal action against the county. We know from testimony last meeting that Ridge Breeze Dairy in Pierce County included a number of acres in their nutrient management plan without the knowledge or approval of the landowner. The same company now operates Croix Breeze Dairy in St. Croix County and already has a permit to expand their operation. Spreading of manure brings with it more than just the manure. The landowner's soil is also receiving a dose of pesticides, antibiotics, chemicals, pathogens, and possibly even microplastics that contaminate both soil and water. The landowner may not want to have these hazardous materials spread on their land. Unless the landowner is signature to a spreading agreement, these materials will likely be spread without their knowledge, and his property will be degraded without his knowledge. Furthermore, the ordinance amendment should be approved to reduce and avoid violations of Wisconsin laws regarding trespass to land in Wisconsin Statute 943.13. If a person is on someone else's land without their permission, that person is trespassing. Landowners have legal rights to protect their land from unauthorized entry and use, and trespassers may face civil liability and criminal charges. Providing a manure land spreading
Bud,
agreement.
are you almost,
Just about done.
Okay.
Signed by the landowner shows the legally required authorization to enter and use the property. The argument that a business using someone else's private property for waste disposal should be exempted from providing an agreement signed by the landowner doesn't make sense in light of how Wisconsin law addresses trespass to land. Please approve this amended agreement. Thank you.
thank you. I forgot to say before, Bud, but please be aware of the timer. And then if you do go too far over, we are gonna limit to 2 minutes for everybody to do the bulk of public comments wanted. If you do go too far over, I will cut the microphone. I don't wanna have to do that, but just please be,
Okay,
please be.
did I go a long ways over?
A little bit, yeah. But I didn't mention that before you went, but, so please be aware of the time because we will, it often is 3, but we have a lot to get through today. And that is at my discretion. All right, next we have Sue Curtis.
What Bud said. No, this last weekend, St. Croix Cures was at the St. Croix County Fair. We were at the booth advocating for clean water. We spoke to over 200 people sharing information about the impaired status of our lakes, rivers, and streams in our county. And we talked about nitrate contamination. We heard stories from people from all over, from Emerald, from Richmond, from Baldwin, from Erin Prairie, about high levels of nitrates in their water. We have an issue in St. Croix County. One woman I spoke to from Boardman Township, she just had hers tested at 16 parts per million. Thank goodness she has a reverse osmosis system, which brought that down. So over the 10 parts per million for everyone here is a significant concern, and there's new data that's saying anything over 5 in some of the areas. We know Iowa has very high cancer rates. They also have very high nitrates. So St. Croix County is at a point where we must take bolder actions to protect our groundwater and the subsequent health of our residents. And having the ordinance amended, brought back, where we add that provision in there by landowner spreading would be significant in light of what Danny shared with us at the last month. So I implore you to reconsider the ordinance and bring that new language in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment except for the 3 public hearings and the solar farm agenda item? Any other public comment? Yeah, please step up. State your name, where you live. You don't need to give me street address, but yeah.
Hi, my name is Laura Connard. I live in Erin Prairie Township. I'm on a old farm site. There's many things that I want to talk to you about, but on the ordinance that you're considering on the renewable energy, I request that you either table this item or consider a possibility of a moratorium about this topic. This is a pretty significant issue for the county to consider. It seems like it's pretty reactionary to the Excel project that is coming. In 2 minutes, I can't even start to talk through all the individual questions that I have about the proposed ordinance that you have here. I'm new to attending county meetings and talking about this stuff, so I don't know what the process is. If I can ask for a meeting to go over this with you individually, if you can have a planning session or a listening session or something else, but there's a lot in here. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I hope you give that some consideration. One thing I do want to speak on in particular is there's a provision in here. It's on page 5. It's a hold harmless and an indemnification clause. I don't know if people are concerned about that, but if a property owner decides to lease their land to someone like Excel to build a solar project on it, having an ordinance that allows them to indemnify themselves and waive all liability. I may be misunderstanding this, but if a hailstorm comes through, creates all sorts of damage, throws all that infrastructure on the onto other people's property, they put it in our hay fields, we bale the hay, we feed it to our cows, and our cows die, then what? Why should the property owner not have any liability? They are doing something that has major ramifications that have many possible harms. There's also the individual harm to the health and safety of the members of the public. I live with a head injury, and having this type of a project across the street from us, the pounding, I've tried to talk to Excel and ask how long does construction take? How long will the pounding of the hundreds of thousand posts that are going in going to be there? And what are the ramifications of that? So I think you need some help on this ordinance.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Any other public comment? All right, seeing none others on those items, we will move to public hearing number 1, the Born Trigger rezoning request in the town of Eau Gallie.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. John Hilger, Senior Planner with Community Development presenting. The first public hearing tonight is for a rezoning application by Mr. Andy Borntrager. The site address is 547 250th Street in Woodville in the town of Eau Gallie. The parcel size is 35 acres and the applicant desires to rezone from R2 to R1. The requested R1 residential zoning is sought to allow a sawmill on the property. Sawmills fall under the category of forest products processing and is allowed as a conditional use permit in the R1 district. The property is currently zoned R2, which under county zoning rules allows most ag uses and 2-acre residential lots with no density limits. Should the rezoning be approved, the applicant will need to be before the committee again with a conditional use permit later on this summer. There is one metal building on the site, and we'll review some maps here momentarily. This building is where the sawmill activities had been previously taken place until the violation was made aware by the county. Next, we'll just take a look at some quick location maps. You'll see the parcel outlined in blue, abutting I-94 just to the north, and is south of the village of Woodville. Next, we'll take a closer look at the property. You'll see the building in the northwest corner of the property, which presumably would be used to resume the sawmill operations. Surrounding property uses are agricultural primarily with scattered homesteads. On the right, you see the 2 holding pond cells for the village of Woodville sewage treatment system. And then lastly, this is a view of the property looking to the northeast with the interstate behind you. Again, you'll see the facility being used for the sawmill operations. Oops. Based on the official zoning map for the town of Eau Gallie, the subject parcel is currently zoned R2 residential. It is bordered by other properties zoned R2. On the very far right side of the map, you'll see some areas outlined in white. Those are the village limits of Woodville. Under state statute, rezoning applications must be consistent with local comprehensive plans. In this case, we will be reviewing the town of Eau Gallie future land use map. You'll see at the point of the red arrow, the red dot represents the property in question. The town of Eau Gallie has a fairly open-ended comprehensive plan in that it recommends areas be zoned Ag 1, Ag 2, R1, R2, C2, or C3. So the town does have a somewhat of a liberal application when it comes to rezoning applications in this part of the town. If we could scroll down. Next, we take a look at the land use map and the comprehensive plan for St. Croix County at the red dot. And under county comprehensive planning, We guide this property for future mixed rural agriculture, which does include limited residential development at 1 unit per 10 acres, as well as protecting existing farm and forestry operations from encroachment. Based on the maps and the policies, it's apparent that the town and county future land use plans would support the rezoning to an R1 residential zoning district. Real quickly, we'll go through the natural resource features. Other than an environmental corridor on the north side of the property, there's not a lot to speak about. There is a intermittent stream you see at the cursor marked in blue, and that drains the property primarily from southwest to northeast. Next slide, please. Next, we have areas that show sensitive environmental features. We do have a shoreland overlay district area. That's 1,000 feet, you see by the green hashed circle, that radiates from the navigable water. On the east edge of the site, it does appear that the proposed use in the building is outside of this. However, if there are any modifications to the site that are within this area, we do have St. Croix County Chapter 16 shoreland zoning that would apply, and that does limit impervious area limits and land disturbance and buffer vegetation requirements. This next slide just indicates that the property is fairly conducive for productive farmland. We do have some slopes in the north central part of the property, however, they are under 20%. St. Croix County Code does not regulate disturbance of slopes unless it's 20% or greater. Governmental agency review, the Town of Eau Gallie Town Board did recommend approval of the rezoning request at their April 8th, 2025 meeting. Under the current Town of Eau Gallie Comprehensive Plan, we did cite a goal and objective that the Town of Eau Gallie will encourage a desirable mix of land uses that will maintain the town's rural character and preserve its agricultural heritage. Under applicable statutes and criteria, we weigh the rezoning request against whether or not it's consistent with the county comprehensive plan, the natural resource management plan, the county zoning ordinance, that the town has approved the rezoning request, and the rezoning and proposed use would be consistent with surrounding zoning districts. In conclusion, based on staff review and town review of the request, we would recommend approval of the zoning amendment from R2 to R1, citing the findings above, also referencing the fact that the Town of Eau Gallie and St. Croix County Comprehensive Future Land Use Map designates land use descriptions and does support the rezoning change to R1, and that the Town of Eau Gallie has recommended approval, and that the proposed use can comply with standards in Chapter 15 zoning ordinance. As I mentioned earlier, pending approval of the rezoning, this would come back to committee for a conditional use permit review process. As of 4:30 today, we have not received any public comment as a result of the posted notice in the local paper, and then everybody within 300 feet gets an individual notice. We have not received any public comment. That concludes the overview of this request.
Any questions, or should we, let's see if there's public comment first. Any member from the public that would like to comment on the board trigger rezoning request in the Town of Eau Gallie? Any public comment on this rezoning request? Any comment on this rezoning request? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing for this item, move to business item 1, amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance in the Town of Eau Gallie. Are there any questions for John or staff? Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Counter.
John, I just have one question for you. Being at its location and stuff to the village of Woodville, did they seek out from the village of Woodville for extraterritorial plat review authority that Woodville statutorily has for 1.5 miles?
As far as we know, there would not be any plat that would be affiliated with this. It's a 35-acre parcel. Based on the proposed use, there would not be any platting. There is no desire to split it into any separate lots.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns? No? I'll entertain a motion. Go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
I'll make a motion to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance for the town of Eau Gallie from R2 to R1.
I'll second that.
Motion by Supervisor Shirley, second by Supervisor Rice. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're ready for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now move to public hearing number 2, the wire conditional use permit request in the town of Springfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So Mitchell Wire submitted a conditional use permit request to install a septic tank and related service on a property located at 2947 110th Avenue, Glenwood City. The parcel ID number is 034-1019-50050. It's on a property in that is 36.2 acres. And the use is allowed as a CUP in Chapter 15.285.2 of the St. Croix County Chapter 15 zoning ordinance. Mitchell purchased Barron's Septic and Pumping Company in November of 2022. The applicant is willing to install the tank and pump residential septic tanks throughout the county and bring it back to his tank to dump it in, and then he can take and use a semi to take and haul that waste to Eau Claire, and that versus land spreading the waste in the county or doing a lot more trips with his smaller truck. So that is essentially his goal. Mitchell owns the property here in the blue outline. His house is right here where the mouse is, and then he's got a shed here, and he's looking at installing this larger tank to the south side of the shed here. So it's about 1,320 feet to the west property line, 1,100 feet to the north line, 2,500 feet to the east line, and about 3,500 to the house, and that to the southwest or southeast. So sorry, those are to the houses. So the site plan is kind of a little hard to see here, but you can see where that proposed holding tank is, just on the southwest corner of the shed. And he's looking at being 690 feet to the west property line, around 390 to the south, 150 feet off the east property line, and about 65 feet from the shed. And that tank would be 403 feet from the well on site. So that would be the closest well to a tank like this. Only has to be 2 feet from the lot line, so he's more than adequate to meet that requirement. The tank would also be permitted through the DNR. So because of its size and that's something that we would not permit. So they would have a truck that would be parked on the gravel pad here. That would be where the semi would be. And then their pump truck that they go out to the houses with, and that would be stored inside. So this is a photo going to the north. So here's the shed. That tank would be out in here, right where the mouse is. This is going to the west. There'd be nothing in that area. You can kind of see the pink line here on the grass. That would be where the tank would be. The photo to the east here, again, no houses close by, and then to the south. Okay. So overall, and that the impact of this CUP request, and that should be minimal due to actually fewer truck traffic trips going to and from the site. There's not any houses that are close by as far as any odor or smell. It is compatible in the R1 zoning district or classification. So we do believe that it is in line with the spirit and intent of the ordinance. And it will probably actually help public safety and welfare because it'll be going into that holding tank and then going to Eau Claire to be treated instead of being land spread, and that throughout the county. The town of Springfield has not commented on this, so we take that as that they have no comment or that they're not opposed. The DNR has not commented either, and that, but of course, they will have that permit authority. So if we look at the ordinance, any CUP shall follow these criteria, and you have the ability to approve, deny, or table. And with that, I can turn it over for any comments, and then we do have a draft document for findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Any comments at this time from the committee? Go ahead, Supervisor Van Summeren.
I just have one question, Jason. I didn't see in here anything when I read through it before either of what happens when the tank is no longer used as far as restoring the property. I mean, that we can't just let that set in the ground because it will deteriorate, it'll cave in, whatever.
Yeah.
How is that covered?
So administrative code for any septic tank, even if it's just a smaller one at somebody's household, requires you to pump it out, and then you need to cave it in and fill it with an inert material, and that basically dirt. So, yep, dirt, concrete. Yep.
So that automatically happens, and this
That
doesn't have to
automatically
be
happens.
specified?
Yep, correct.
Any other questions or thoughts at this time? Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Oh, no, we're not there yet.
Okay.
Now would be the time to open up to public comment. Yep. If there's anyone who wants to speak either in favor or against this conditional use permit request, please stand up and speak now. Anyone wants to speak on this CUP, please speak now. Anyone want to speak on this conditional use permit? No. That being said, we'll close this public hearing, move to business item number 2 on the wire conditional use permit.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I won't go through all the findings of fact. A lot of this was already in the staff report that I just went over. But one thing that I would like to point out is hours of operation from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday, Sunday as needed if there's a emergency pump and that might need to be. But again, it's only the truck coming in, dumping from the small tank into the holding tank and then out, so. So conclusions of law, maintenance of safe and healthful conditions. Staff believe in that the holding tank will be kept in a watertight compliant spot on the property, and that so there's not going to be any septage going into the ground from here. It'll actually reduce the amount of land spreading that takes place, and so we won't be taking and disposing of any land on this site either. So. The tank is going to be below ground. There's not any drainage features in that close to this where we'd be running water over the top of the tank or anything like that. It's not in an environmental corridor on the site. There's very little erosion potential. It's a fairly small hole for this tank, and of course that'll be all seeded and go back to its current state right now. It's just some big grass areas. The use will use the existing road as it has, and again, the amount of traffic in that and the truck traffic trips should be reduced. The need of the proposed use, and that we're getting more and more sewer systems, vault privies, and so it does make sense to have a facility like this in the rural area. And it's a fairly large tank, and so we believe that would be adequate capacity in that for their use. So then the decision, we would suggest approving of the CUP on the following conditions. Basically that they're gonna apply, or they're gonna comply with their application that they submitted. The hours of operation, 7:30 to 6, Monday through Saturday and Sunday as needed. That they need to obtain all permits and approvals from the DNR. And then any other owners or any changes in that would need to comply with the ordinance and this CUP. Anything that the committee would like to add for findings of fact or conclusions of law or criteria on the request?
Any changes to the finding of the facts from the committee? No? I will then entertain a motion. You want Supervisor Van Summeren?
I make a motion that we allow the conditional use permit, Section 9, Town of Springfield, for a septic tank and related services to Mr. Wire and Mrs. Wire.
And I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this conditional use permit? All those in favor of the motion approving the CUP signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Now move on to public hearing number 3, the Brenneman conditional use permit request in the town of Springfield.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. David Brenneman applied for a conditional use permit for a forest products processing facility. The property is located at 929 County Road D. Parcel ID is 034-1042-40000. It's a 36-acre property in the town of Springfield. This use is allowed as a CUP underneath section 15.2852 of the St. Croix County Chapter 15 zoning ordinance. There's currently a sawmill business in operation out there on site. But again, the sawmill operation or that forest products operation is allowed in the R1 zoning classification. Mr. Brenneman's processing end products are pallet stock and sawdust. So that's basically the products in that are generated. He does sell some of his sawdust in that for nearby farms and animal bedding, and also can be composted. He generally only operates the sawmill 2 to 3 times per week, and it's only during daytime hours. Traffic expected on the site is 2 trucks delivering the logs each week and 1 truck hauling out the pallet material. So it's roughly 3 trucks per week. So currently on site, David does have his home on the site as well as the sawmill building, and then he's also got a sawdust shed. The impact on the surrounding properties is expected to be very minimal because the nearest dwelling is over 2,000 feet away. And it seems like it is a compatible use due to it being a very rural area and not having much for housing nearby. And it's mainly ag fields and wooded land around the request. So it seems like that would be in the spirit and intent of the zoning district. So again, they have the sawmill building where all the sawdust is blown and stored, so it's not all, and that subject to the rain, subject to the wind blowing around. And that we believe that there's not a lot of truck traffic to create the dust. There are sawmills inside. I was out there last week, actually seen them sawing, and there was very little dust flying around the site. The engine that they have has got exhaust on it, and so it's not very loud either. And then of course, and that they would only be operating during the daytime hours, so that would prevent any nighttime noise. There's really no potential environmental concerns with this site. They're not going to be generating any extra stormwater runoff or soil erosion. The soils are over 400 feet away where there's really heavy soils where they could potentially rut up something from trucks, and that didn't seem like any issue on site currently as well. So here's a site map of the property, and you can see it's pretty much zoned all R1 around it. So there's just not a lot of housing development potential in that area. Here's an aerial image. So here's Mr. Brenneman's home here. Here is the sawmill shed right in this area. So you can see that they have log piles stacked up on each side, and then this is more of the slab wood and the end product and that for the pallet material. They do also have some barns and some ag use on site as well. As of this point, we heard from the town of Springfield as well. The town of Springfield did not support the CUP request because currently Mr. Brenneman is operating at more than 50% of his income level, and that for the sawmill operation. And that underneath the commercial code, we've been told that there's an exemption that if they go less than 50% of their household income, that they don't have to comply with the commercial code. And that was the issue that the town of Springfield has with it, is that they're not complying with the commercial code. When we were on site last week, we talked to the applicant, and he is making modifications to his operation to reduce his overall income off from the sawmill operation to less than 50% because he believes that adopting the commercial building code would be against his religion beliefs for that site. And so as staff, we would work with them in that to see what we can do for 2026. Shall this CUP be granted today? So with that, I know Mr. Brenneman is here. I don't know if he wants to speak or add anything or any other comments that might be available.
Yep, thank you. This time we'll hear any public comment either for or against this conditional use permit. Any comments on this conditional use permit? Any comments on this use permit? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, move to business item number 3, Brenneman conditional use permit request in section 18 of the town of Springfield.
All right. Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. So basically, the findings of fact here are the same as what I just went through in the staff report. As far as the conclusions of law, and that we believe that this use is consistent because it is in an ag area and there's not much housing and it's pretty much open farmland in this area. We don't believe that there's going to be any impact in that because there's no neighbors close by. The property also has that sawdust building where they store it, which is probably one of the biggest concerns and complaints that we've heard. And then also, having a muffler or an exhaust on the engines, and that is a big thing. And then operating during the daytime hours, we believe that that'll prevent it from being a public nuisance. So with that request, or with those findings and conclusions, staff would recommend approval of this sawmill operation in the R1 zoning district at the 929 County Road D address with the following conditions. Conditions 1 and 2 are really to take and address the town of Springfield's concerns. And so that the applicant would comply with all applicable town and county ordinances, and that they should also comply with any applicable local, county, state, or federal permits, and that to be obtained. So if their income doesn't reduce, and we know that in 2026, they would have to comply with that code at the state level, and that, however, if they do reduce to less than 50%, we can probably work with them here. So that was our suggestion to address the town of Springfield's concerns. And then just the general criteria for the conditional use permit is basically having that shed for the sawdust, the operations being only during the daytime hours, and then the actual operation of the sawmill being limited to 2 days per week. So anyway, and then any new owners would also have to comply. So that's kind of what we had for conditions.
Any discussion on this? Go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
The only question I really saw reading through this was that last condition about operations limited to 2 days a week. Is that because of the income issue that you're working, or is that something that the owner was the amount of use, I guess?
Supervisor Shirley just confirmed with the applicant, and that they do occasionally saw extra, and that during the winter hours, or if they have a particular order that they need to get out. So they would actually prefer in that to bump that to an average of 3 days a week.
Okay.
Are you okay with that? Okay.
Any other comments, concerns, questions? That will entertain a motion. Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Montgomery.
Make a motion that we approve the Brenneman conditional use permit in the request in section 18 of the town of Springfield for sawmill operation, with that one change that it would be 3 days a week instead of 2.
3-day average. 3-day average.
3-day average.
Have a second? Supervisor Rice is off first. Any further discussion? That being said, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of the CUP with the conditions described signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, so before we're gonna move on to agenda item 4. I guess my little 2 cents before we start. I just want to state, staff isn't stating an opinion. They're only doing as they're directed by the committee and the county board as a whole. So don't take what they're saying today as being a personal opinion of staff. I want to echo, please stick to 2 minutes. The committee will only be hearing public comment from county residents. And if you do go too far over 2 minutes, again, I will shut off the microphone. So please be aware. And then to help that, it would be preferred if you try not to repeat the same thing as previous people. But that being said, I know that somewhat will happen. You can only remember somewhat, or I mean, it will happen, but just try to avoid giving, the same point over and over again. That would be appreciated. With that being said, we're not to the public comment yet, but we'll let Jason get started here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to just start by providing some background on how we got here. So back in the early months of the year, Excel Energy, Brian Elwood, and Megan Boldig came to the county board. They presented on their project. Then we worked with Wisconsin Counties Association, and Rebecca Roker was here at your February board meeting, and that to kind of talk about the public service process or public service commission process and the option to possibly enter into a joint development agreement or an intervenor status through the PSC. At that meeting, the county board gave us, as staff, the direction to start the communications sooner than later with Excel and the Public Service Commission. Since the application hasn't been filed with the PSC, we haven't reached out to them because they really don't even know what's coming yet. However, on that, we have met with Excel a few times, and that since that February meeting, you, as the Community Development Committee, took and refined some priorities or some concerns that the county board and the committee had at your March meeting. And so our first meeting was really showing them and that what the concerns were of the county board. And then we worked with Excel to take and figure out what items could be put into a JDA or a joint development agreement, and other provisions that were more just, questions about like the efficiency of the panel, if they're recyclable, that kind of stuff. And so then at that meeting, we as county staff provided a sample joint development agreement format. But that format was for more of a solar developer, not a public utility. And so Excel basically went back to their council and they brought back a different format of a JDA that is more of a public utility based. Then that draft and that didn't have all the provisions in that the county board had. So we made some tweaks in that, working back and forth with Excel. And ultimately, a week ago, and that we got the final draft and that of the JDA, which is what is in the Community Development Committee packet here tonight, that I'd like to go through and kind of hit some of the high points as well. Now, we did have a tour to the Sherco Excel facility last Monday, and that's scheduled for the county board. But after working with Excel, and that just on the open meetings law, it would be very difficult to take and be able to accommodate a large number of people. And we have no way to know if we're going to have 5 members of the public attend or 100 people attend. And so they need PPE, and so there's a lot of safety concerns on that topic. Since then, though, Excel is still committed to trying to provide as much information about the project as they can. And so we're working on doing some kind of like a virtual tour, and that where the county can take and ask some questions, even Q&A. It'll be recorded, and then we can share it with the full board and the public. So that is something in that hopefully we can get the same outcome and still comply with all of our open meetings laws. So just in the state of Wisconsin right now, there's approximately 20 utility scale energy projects. And that's the ones that are actually built. In the queue, there's about 4,400 megawatts of solar that is either developed or it's going through the PSC process to be permitted. Of that 4,400 megawatts, about 1,000 megawatts is battery storage, or there's besides that 4,400, there's an additional 1,000 megawatts of battery storage. And so Excel being a public utility, and that even to take and build the project, they have to complete a certificate of need. So they have to prove to the Public Service Commission that they actually need that energy production. But of course, in that they're wanting to shut down the King plant, so they can probably justify that need. So with that, so that kind of provides an update on where we are today. Again, you know, a joint development agreement is not something that Excel is required to do. They can just go through the PSC process and try to do it that way. Any project that is solar or wind like this, that's over 100 megawatts in size, and that is solely underneath the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission. And so we're not really looking to approve the JDA tonight. We're just trying to get some feedback from the public and from the committee. We can take that feedback back to Excel and see what Excel says. And then at the August County Board meeting, we could really have a better conversation about does the county board want to continue with the joint development process, or do they want to take and do the intervenor route through the Public Service Commission? And then at the June County Board meeting, and that the county board had asked us to do a municipal meeting, and that actually they asked on that several months ago, but at that meeting, they wanted to do that municipal meeting after the full board got to see the JDA so that they knew what kind of provisions were in it. And more than likely, whatever the county board does, that'll lay the groundwork for our conversation with the towns and the public. Okay, so as we get started here, I can't highlight the positive things in the JDA without sounding for the project or for the JDA. So again, as Chairman Anderson mentioned, I'm not trying to be one-sided at all. But anyway, so when we look at the JDA, I'm going to hit the high spots. The JDA would be for the total project size of 650 megawatts. There is a potential battery storage, and that as part of one of the phases, and that, or maybe both phases. So this JDA would be intended to take and capture both if they do intend to actually add battery storage. As we see throughout the document, and that this would be for county and town roads. They're collectively called throughout the document as designated roads. So that is just a big point to point out. Of course, the county, we're not giving Excel much for them committing to this agreement, but what we are giving in that is that we agree that the project is underneath the Public Service Commission authority. We also, so that's there. And then the county also agrees that the county may not require changes to the project. So in other words, if we enter into the JDA and that the county, throughout the PSC process, would not be able to require changes. That's basically what we're giving up in that by entering into the JDA. One of the concerns that the county board had was training for emergency responders throughout. And so this whole page here is really talking about all of the pre and post-construction meetings and the ongoing training that they are willing to provide. And that is going on virtually throughout this whole agreement, that they continue to do future trainings even if there's new staff or new equipment that comes out in relationship or in regard to their project. Okay, so I'm gonna jump down here. The next highlight that I'd like to take and point out is that Excel will comply with any road weight restrictions and applicable county permit requirements. So driveway accesses, stormwater, that kind of stuff would be followed. And then as far as any damage to the roads, and that there would be a report prepared by a mutually agreed upon third-party expert for the pre and post-construction and that of the roads. So basically that would be an inspection of the current state of the roads, and if the project creates any damage, then those damages and that would be covered by Excel. Excel would be covering the sole cost of the report generated by the third party here in the last sentence of B. And then in D here, XL Energy shall compensate the county to repair any roadways and that to a level comparable to their pre-construction level. So if there was any damage, and that we would do it, and then and I guess that was the preference of our highway commissioner, was that we do the work, not Excel doing the work or a contractor doing the work. So that was the suggestion from the county. Okay, and so everything up above, and that was when the project was going to be constructed. However, all that stuff has to be hauled away in that if the project is no longer operational. And so there would be the same kind of agreement in that at least 90 days prior to decommissioning that whole facility. So it takes care of the front side of the project and the back side. One of the other topics that the county board identified was to make sure that they have adequate erosion control and stormwater management plans. So that's right here in A. So that would be complied with. One of the things in that too, and that because we value groundwater a lot within the county, is that they would consult with our land and water staff in that for any comments on the erosion control plan. So that's in B here. And provision D here, Excel agrees to maintain all the drainage systems on the project site. And so that's a big thing to make sure that we're keeping up with those facilities and improvements. Okay, so just to make sure that everybody's clear and that when or if this project would be approved, anytime you have a large utility scale utility like this, that land comes off from the tax roll. And so when we're talking about utility shared revenue payments, the statute says that it's $4,000 per megawatt of the actual production of the site. And that as it's designed, not as it's actually produced. And so that payment is 2/3 goes to the county and 1/3 goes to the towns. But as we know, when we pay our property taxes, we also pay taxes for the schools and stuff like that, which is not included in this utility shared revenue payment. Now, provisions A, B, and C here basically talk about Excel, and that committing to paying those utility shared revenue payments, and that they will not petition the state to change that dollar amount. However, being a public utility, they're not able to confirm that we're gonna lock in that $4,000 per megawatt, because if the statute changes, and that they have to comply with the statute. And so they tried to put language in here to support that, hey, we're not gonna try to get it reduced, but it's about all that they can do here. Okay. So the community grant, I mentioned that the schools do not get any revenue from the utility shared revenue payment. And so they talk in A here and that they realize that the schools won't have those dollars. They talk about and that the STEM program for science, technology, engineering, and math. But the one I'd like to draw your attention to is B here, and that they are willing to fund $50,000 per year for every year of the agreement for the whole project life cycle. And that would be split right now to New Richmond School, which would be 20 grand, St. Croix Central School would be 20 grand, and Northwood Tech would be 10 grand. So that makes up the 50 grand. Those are the schools that are impacted with the project area. And so when I'm talking about all of this and that, we're only talking about phase one. We have not seen any maps of phase two. We don't know what phase two would look like. So that's a big thing that if the county didn't do the joint development agreement, that we would not have the ability to get those funds and that for the schools. So number 6 is the impact to the adjacent properties. And so Excel is willing to work with the property owners within 500 feet of the lease boundary of the project in the following ways. The first way in that is screening. And so they are interested in developing a screening plan with each property owner to to mitigate the impact of the site of the project. And some of the things in that I thought were good, or at least specific in here, was that they'll be considering the view sheds of nearby homes during both the growing and the dormant seasons during that development plan. That they're looking at planting native site-appropriate trees and shrubs. The size and the age of the plantings will be made to balance their survivability and the speed of establishment. The plantings will be completed during the project and that when it's being built or constructed. And then the last sentence here, that the plantings will be monitored throughout the life of the project and that so that screening is maintained. So I thought those were kind of the big points there. Lighting and that will be considered dark sky. And also in that, in addition to the items above, and that Excel is approaching all those household owners within that 500 feet and seeking a solar project neighbor agreement or some other form of agreement. And so I realize the term plan or the screening plan is kind of a vague word in that for an agreement like this. But Excel is really wanting to work on it case by case with each property owner specifically to address their needs. And none of these plans are built yet, or created yet. So even the project plans are only in the beginning design phases. So that would be built into the design. That's another benefit of the JDA, and again, I'm sounding positive for the JDA, but is that whatever the JDA creates for the plan, they can build it into their overall project because they're still in the designing phase, whereas if we intervene at the Public Service Commission, we're coming in more at the later end and the plans are already created. So then, decommissioning. So being that they're a public service commission, or a public utility, and that they have to have a plan to basically restore the area back to its original state with the Public Service Commission. And so the Public Service Commission would be the one that would hold Xcel Energy to those costs, and they would hold them to actually getting that project restored back. So decommissioning for a solar developer is a little bit different. That's where we typically see financial assurances and stuff in case the developer company goes under or they sell. But being a public utility, that's why that portion of this JDA is simplified. Okay, number 8. So we're getting into more of the specifics and that with the actual project layout. And each one of you should have this little chart. And it's a really nice summary of how our current Chapter 15 ordinance regulates solar energy systems, and then also what is in the joint development agreement. If somebody doesn't have this, there's some more over there on the table. But this really breaks up a lot of the information I'm going to go through right now. So the 100-foot setback that Xcel is providing would be from all project components to the property boundary of each non-participating property abutting the property. That's excluding fences and access roads. And very similar to that, there's a 150-foot setback from any existing homes of non-participating landowners. Now I can tell you, and that just in conversations with Xcel staff, again, as they're creating these plans and they're doing the neighbor agreements and that those are minimums. And if they can take and make the project fit and they can give a bigger buffer there, Xcel has said that they're willing to entertain those concerns or those options. So comparing that to our Chapter 15 zoning ordinance right now, a solar panel would only have to be 5 feet from the property line. And we don't have any specific setback from the solar array to any houses and that around the project site. The panel heights would be capped at 15 feet. Our current Chapter 15 is 35 feet for the max, and that, I believe our ordinance was thinking in case somebody was putting panels over like a parking lot, that would be separate, or if it was gonna be like a freestanding pole-mounted system. Vegetation management, this kind of repeats a lot of what is there, but that they would have a plan to take and use mowing and selective practices to control any noxious weeds. That was one of the county board's concerns as well. Part of the project, they are proposing an 8-foot high open fence. It's kind of like a wire mesh fence, not necessarily a solid privacy fence or anything like that. And it's like a wire mesh or a chain link, and that with barbed wire as well. That's all required by the electrical code. Our ordinance says in that we have a maximum height of 12 feet for an open fence. Aesthetics, that's always a tough one to measure because what I think is unsightly might not be what somebody else thinks is unsightly. But Xcel Energy has in here that they will try to make a good faith effort to address any aesthetic concerns raised by landowners and that around the project. Sound, and that sound would be limited to the sound that would be allowed by the Public Service Commission. So, in other words, the PSC will mandate the maximum sound level. The county board had brought up about wildlife and wildlife corridors. And so Excel will work with the Wisconsin DNR and that to make sure that if there's a specific corridor for an endangered species or even our other wildlife, they will build that into the actual project design to accommodate. The agricultural section, and that a lot of it is just kind of general. But B here, that they will take into consideration any specialty crop areas, any organic farming areas, and that might be impacted by the project. And provision C, just from a staff perspective, because we have farmland pres and that, we need to report to DATCAP any acres that are removed out of farmland preservation use. And so C is basically addressing that point, just so that we can report it. We did receive comment in that from one of our dairy producers about stray voltage and about confined animal operations. So Excel will identify any of those confined animal operations and that within a half mile of the project. And then they will actually do a pre and post measure of the voltage and that. And if there's any stray voltage there, they will actually mitigate that voltage and that in some way or another. And then they'll also monitor it going forward. And now we're getting into more of the general provisions of the JDA and cooperation. So if there's any changes in the plan or the agreement, that they will communicate that with the county, that last sentence there. Compliance and complaint process. So during the project, as it's being constructed or built, Excel Energy will have a product or a project contact for the people to reach out to. And then after the project is constructed during normal operation, Excel Energy will provide one of their full-time operations team to be its point of contact for complaints. And complaints can be submitted in writing via mail and that at the address provided by Excel Energy. Indemnification, and that they agreed to indemnify and hold harmless the county and its supervisors, trustees, et cetera, even any liabilities for damage to the property of the county and any physical injury to any person, as long as we're not negligent. And furthermore, Excel agrees to defend, indemnify, and hold harmless the indemnified parties from any third-party claims arising out of the performance or non-performance of any of the terms of the agreement. Excel is going to provide insurance. They will comply with all federal, state, and county local laws, ordinances, and statutes as part of the project here. So that's kind of a big one to make sure that we can do the stormwater and stuff. And then if there is a dispute, and that we've got 60 days from the time in which the county notifies it of the dispute related to this agreement, and that to take and follow up with an answer. And the last thing is just the term of the agreement is basically the life of the project, unless it's agreed by the county and Excel to change it. So, and again, just to go back, this would be only for phase one right now, or that's all that we have seen and that, or know anything about is phase one with the maps that were released around Memorial Day. But this whole agreement would be for both phases. If the county so choose to move forward with a JDA on it. Phase one is 3,287 acres, I believe, or just shy of 3,300 acres. So with that, is there any questions?
Any quick questions? Otherwise, we can take public comment right now. Yeah, we'll do with public comment. I have them in order, and Julie also has them in the same order. So please come up as you're called. I'll ask that you not set the timer until they're done saying where they're from. But yeah, please remember what I referenced earlier. With that, We'll start with Dave Franey, and Tom Brunscheidel is next.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak today. First, I'd like to say I'm bummed now I have 2 minutes because I'd like to talk about this whole thing more. But I read through this thing that we all went through here, and I haven't heard a word about karst. Do you guys know what that is? K-A-R-S-T. When you leave here, go to your computers and look it up. Google boring in karst. Google boring and karst in Wisconsin. Because when you do, I think you guys, we shouldn't even be here today until you do that. I haven't seen anything in here about karst. Let me read you the definition. Karst, landscape underlain by limestone which has been eroded and disillusioned, producing ridges, towers, sinkholes, and other characteristic landforms. Do you guys know we're sitting on a hotbed of karst here? Then you should look into it because we are. And by drilling and doing all this pounding, let me tell you what AI says, okay? Don't take my word for it. I went to AI and I had AI look up on saying, AI, tell me about boring karst in Wisconsin. Here's what AI came back to me and said. Boring or drilling karst in areas in Wisconsin requires careful consideration of the potential for groundwater contamination. Second, karst landscape poses a high risk for rapid contaminant transport, making groundwater highly vulnerable. And last, it says, further research and careful management practices are crucial to protect groundwater quality in Wisconsin karst regions. I haven't heard a damn thing about it. I've been going to meetings and stuff for 6 months, and I heard a couple of people talking about it, but it's just disappearing. And because of lack of time, I could go on for this forever, maps, everything. But because of lack of time, a gal, I've been going to all these meetings, learning a lot about this, okay? A gal gave me this, and this came from her insurance agent, okay? Local, right here. It says she got a renewable auto owner's insurance, which I'm sure a lot of us have had out here. It reads, your renewable policy is enclosed. The endorsement titled Earth Movement Exclusion has been added to your policy, which excludes coverage for loss caused by earth sinking, rising, or shifting. This change is a result in reduction of your coverage. Do any of you know that they're canceling this stuff with all the residents here? This could be you next week, and when your house falls into a big asshole, who are you going to sue? We're going to sue the county because you guys didn't do your job. Look into karst before you take this any farther. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Tom.
Tom Brunscheidel, Hammond. Good evening to the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to provide comments and provide a technical argument on the 10 Mile Creek project. The state of Wisconsin has had in place comprehensive planning legislation. This legislation is Section 66-1001 of Wisconsin state law. This law requires towns to develop comprehensive plans for the future. These initial plans were written in the early 2000s and have had revisions at the town level as required by law. Subparagraph 9D states in the section Utilities and Community Facilities element, this section shall be a compilation of objectives, policy, goals, maps, and programs to guide the future development of utilities and community facilities in the local government unit, including power generating plants and transmission lines. The element shall describe the location, use, capacity of existing public utilities and community facilities that serve the local governmental unit. Shall include an approximate timetable that forecasts the need in the local government unit to expand or rehabilitate existing utilities and facilities, or to create new utilities and facilities that shall assess future needs for government services in the local government unit that are related to such utilities and facilities. What I believe this to mean is that local town boards definitely have a role to play in the way they develop and how the land in the town is used. The joint development agreement before you makes the following statement. The parties agree that the project is under the jurisdiction of the PSCW. That statement by Excel shows a complete disregard for the law on comprehensive planning. So I ask, which law applies here? Does the PSCW oversee this project completely, or do local government bodies have a part to play in the planning process? My request is that the committee vote to not approve the JDA with Excel Energy. The committee should take this opportunity to have this issue sent back to the towns for a recommendation to either approve or reject the JDA based on the local town's review of the project when considered through the lens of comprehensive planning. Please do not allow the state to write conflicting legislation on power generating plants and transmission lines that both asks for public input on the future development and then disregards that input by moving the decisions to a bureaucratic state commission. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll ask that you hold applause in this chamber, please. You guys, it's not appropriate for this forum. We have Carol Ivance next, and after Carol, we have Carrie Willoughby.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. I just want to say, anyone remember Joni Mitchell's Big Yellow Taxi? They paved Paradise to put up a parking lot. This is 1,000 times worse than a parking lot. Can we just keep God's green earth green and not do this green energy, which is anything but green? And takes an awful lot of the fuel that does work, the coal, the natural gas, nuclear, and all that kind of stuff. It takes a lot of that to produce a tiny bit of, solar panels, windmills, all this other stuff we keep hearing about. It's pretty much been proven to be basically useless. You can look into it, look at what happened in Spain, talk to the people in Germany. This is just a useless land grab for a large, greedy company, which makes it sound wonderful, but they'll rape our beautiful, productive farmland for zero benefits to our community. So I urge you to vote against it, and those other two speakers had great points also. And we'd much rather be known for beer and cheese here in Wisconsin than for our land being raped. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carol. We have Carrie next, and after Carrie, we have Julie Burr.
Thanks for the comments for today. I'm speaking today to say no to the joint development agreement. The agreement has allowed no ability for the citizens of this county to have a say in how this project proceeds to protect our health and safety and to prevent the financial burdens we will be expected to pay if this project is installed. The agreement lacks a lot of details. The JDA has so many issues, it's hard to believe that the committee who is representing the people of this county even thinks this is coming to the middle. From the beginning of this agreement, sentences like, "The county agrees that the county may not require changes to the project," unquote, under the planning section, to the fact that Excel has not met with local townships and villages, and now Excel will meet shotgun style 30 days before the project begins, to statements that Excel only provides local fire training based on reasonable request, is just the beginning of the lack of responsible requirements listed in the JDA. The mitigation to adjacent properties is sorely lacking. The community grant smacks of bribery. The agricultural section has given Excel Energy the entire control of the depth and types of studies on land, water, and environmental impacts with no county control. There are no statements allowing the county to have a say in what studies are completed, who is doing the studies, example, a third-party firm not connected with Excel, and that might be tricky to find, and the ability of the county to require more studies or mitigation depending on what is reported. According to this draft, Xcel Energy has full control of monitoring, quote, stray voltage, which in their past, they have not done honestly per lawsuits in Minnesota. The section on, quote, cooperation is laughable. Xcel has not been honest or forthright in how they have announced this proposal, and they have not been transparent in their plans when meeting with township groups. The merits of the project should be able to convince the citizens, I'm just looking at my time, of St. Croix County the benefits that the solar proposal would provide, but they don't. We have not witnessed good faith efforts to this point. And a paragraph in this agreement doesn't convince any of that moving forward. Without getting all the details that are so non-negotiable, I'll point out some other facts. Like this draft agreement, and after speaking with the gentleman from Range, it is clear we cannot count on the county to protect our interests. The gentleman from Range came to the Aaron Prairie Township meeting and shared what the solar project in Range is like to their citizens. The county agreed to the initial proposal, and the solar company chose to disregard the proposal and change the contract after the fact. His folks are surrounded by panels, lots and lots of them, and the job site is just down the road. The Range project has already changed hands once from the company who originally started the project, and according to his testimony, out of 55 panel posts, 20% of them failed, clearly showing the geologic testing and studies were not properly done, or if so, were not as intensive as they should have been. He stated the ambient heat on the road next to the panels and the surrounding areas is so hot in the afternoon it is unbearable. When he spoke with company officials, the responsible decommissioning plan was non-existent, just as it seems to be in this agreement. This decommission plan would be filled with some details, should be filled with some details for both the farmers who are leasing the land and our local governments throughout the county. For the Range project, the officials stated they were hoping to ship panels to Africa when the project was completed. How is that responsible recycling?
Please, you're almost done.
Almost done? All right.
Honestly, please.
I'll finish it off. Please do not continue with this joint development agreement. Xcel is not coming seriously to the table. You, as our representatives, need to be scrutinizing every bit of this project and have a thorough understanding about solar technology and the unique qualities of the land here in St. Croix County. These projects are being jammed all over farmlands, all over the U.S., with people who live in those areas being left behind. This is not a good faith agreement and does not protect us. Your main job in evaluating the solar proposal overall is to be our advocates. We want you to fight for us at the PSC without a JDA in hand.
All right. Please be cognizant of the time.
Sorry.
Yeah. Julie, and then Stephen Nelson is next.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to come up here and speak our comments. My name is Julie Burr, and I live in Baldwin, Wisconsin. First of all, I read the JDA, and my first thought was, when I read the paragraph where it says the county has no right to require any changes, what do you know about this project that you would be willing to sign that agreement saying going forward from that date, you have nothing to say about it? If you're willing to do that, I want to write a loan up with you or sell you a car. Scares the crap out of me. I don't want you guys to tie your hands, and I certainly don't want you to tie mine. I'm hoping that you decline this JDA. It's not required for this project to go forward. There does not have to be a JDA. Let's run the course. Stand up for us at the PSC and fight for us. Let's make this work for all of us. This is for my children and my grandchildren. I probably won't be around to see the impacts, which we have no idea what they will be. But I'm here fighting for them. I hope you'll all do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen Nielsen. And after Steve is Janet Sipurik.
Thanks for this chance to speak to you. I'm a lifelong resident of St. Croix County, currently living in Hudson Township. I've had experiences with Xcel Energy, and I do not trust them. but I will not be affected directly by this project. I understand that the hands of the county is pretty much tied here, and I understand there's a decommissioning plan. But I'm telling you very strongly, that's not enough. You must demand, it's imperative that you demand a detailed plan, not just decommissioning, but restoring the land. This land will always be county land. It'll never leave the county. And it's not unheard of that a county is stuck with cleaning up or restoring land. So we need a detailed plan. It has to be done by an outside professional. It has to be audited. It has to have dollars. And we have to have money to cover that, guaranteed. We must demand a bond from Xcel Energy to cover that cost. That plan must be updated at least every 5 years. We must have the money in hand because Xcel Energy is not trustworthy. The paper that has this decommissioning plan is worthless. The easiest thing in the world is for a public utility to declare Chapter 11 bankruptcy and reorganize and walk away from their obligations. You don't think it's ever been done before? You ever heard of PG&E? A much bigger public utility in California. They declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy and walked away from their obligations, not once, but twice. So I can only urge you, it's going to end up in court. It's never been done before, but I'm saying that for the interest of the citizens of the county, you must do this. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Janet, and after Janet is Stephen Lodoiga. I probably butchered it, but.
Okay, I'm Jan Sapurik, and I currently live in Baldwin. I've lived in this county for 48 years, and I want to thank you for listening to what public input is. I was living in the township of Forest when we had the wind farm proposed, and our previous town board did not have open, they had a secret memo with the wind developer, and then when we, the public, found out that we'd been betrayed, they were recalled and a new town board was elected, and one of which was my husband. He had learned in school that at the local level, we should all be in charge of our own destiny. So I'm glad to hear we will have a public hearing before the county board will vote on whether to have the JDA. This 90 days is a complete cop-out. It must be gotten in writing before the project even begins. And I agree with the man before me that they could just not pay up. Okay, I think, as I said before, do a vote or a referendum to document the percentage of the county residents who favor or oppose the project. Then you'll know how to do your job as elected officials and do what the majority want. As my husband phrased it, I want what the people want is the correct answer for an elected official. We citizens did many hours of research and shared information with the town board. Then we were easily able to refute the slick sales pitch, and they'd say anything to get what they wanted, which was to get rich at our expense. Our town board hired attorneys from Madison who were able to shepherd it through the PSC, and they had experience. They hired experts to testify and brought in victims from the developer's previous wind farm. They had suffered from many problems, and I'm afraid my time is up. Is that correct?
Yeah, just
Okay.
15, 20 seconds, wrap up. You're
Okay.
fine. Finish your
Well,
thought.
our new town chair said, I refuse to play the coward's role, and we want to know we did everything we could. Naturally, the developer tried to claim real estate values would not decrease and cited a 10-year-old study from California. They tried to spin and discount any questions. I think there's no need for a JDA. It's their first volley, their opening bid, very one-sided, everything they want and nothing that's good for us. So, and one other thing that we found out would happen to us is it's imperative that any agreement not be signed before the ordinances are firmly in place because they're not effective retroactively.
All right. Thank you. All right, Stephen, And then after Stephen is Heather Bruner.
Stephen Wadega from the town of Aaron Prairie. 3 minutes to speak here is very short. 2 minutes is an outrageous policy. I mean, this thing is done in a back room with no say-so, and all of a sudden it's thrown at us, and we're supposed to do it. Your county staff person had, I don't know how much time, I didn't put a clock to him, but I know you got a clock on me, so I'm gonna get going here. You do have control over health and safety, and maybe even zoning. Barron County right now has a lawsuit against the PSC, filed April 7th. And that, they filed that lawsuit because they went to the PSC, their county administrator did, and talked about health issues, safety issues, things that affected the Barron County interest. PSC disregarded every single thing they said. They're gonna have a deal with the JDA. In fact, that JDA was also gonna be signed by the town of Maple Grove and the town of Barron, unlike what you guys are doing here. The towns were a part of the whole deal too. JDA, they ended up not signing it because it didn't have the best interest for the county. So they filed suit. Attorney commenting for Barron County said, it's a private attorney, they're protecting Barron County's interests, including safety, cost, and zoning. And the zoning, by the way, is Farmland Preservation Comprehensive Plan, what somebody talked about earlier tonight, and what I talked about last meeting from you guys. As of right now, PSC has not responded to that. It's been over 3 months. They filed 2 extensions for the response time. If it was all cut and dry, as everyone make you believe, the PSC would have filed the response and filed a motion to dismiss that case, and the case would be dismissed today, being that it filed April 7th. But it's not, because it's not cut and dry. You guys do have power, and to give it up to the PSC is a bunch of hogwash. Your staff member said, future Excel promises, they'll promise to deal with the land conservation, with this, with that, with that. It all means nothing, because the first sentence in there says you gave up all your power to the PSC. The PSC is going to tell you what to do, and they're not going to act in your interest. They're going to act in the residents of Minnesota's interest, where all this power is going. Town roads. Towns have control over town roads, not the county. This says that the county would designate, NXL would designate what town roads are. BS. The towns designate which town roads, not the county. The county doesn't have power over that. Karst. Karst is a very real threat to groundwater. They talked about it. I was going to talk a little bit about more. But PSC said this county does a great job of tracking their sinkholes. Sinkholes done because of Karst. It collapses on in. Well, how about not only tracking it, how about acting upon it? Who has looked at your county sinkhole map and compared it to the solar map to see where the sinkholes line up with the solar panels? Has anybody? Probably not, because I don't hear the word, as he mentioned earlier, the word karst doesn't even exist around here. Your website talks about sinkholes. The Wisconsin Geological Natural History Survey talks about it, talks about the threats to the ground walls. You guys need a geotechnological engineer to come in here, look over this project, look over the soils, look over engineering, look over stormwater management project. PSC is not going to do that. You guys need to do that. I'm being told to wrap up. Storm damage, hail. Last time there was 3 mile watt swath when you guys met. What's going to happen there? Tornado. I got a great video of it happened on May 16th. Fire, not addressed really because of everything else like that. I'm gonna drop some Tootsie Roll Pops over here, because if you guys sign this, you're a bunch of suckers. Solar doesn't preserve ag land, farming preserves ag land. Don't give away the farm, you'll never get it back.
I would please ask that you use regular speaking voice, and I would ask that again, please do not applause after speeches. We do that, we'll cut public discussion short. I'm trying to do everyone a favor. We're not necessarily against you. We want to hear your opinion. Please try to be respectful. Thank you. Heather, thank you. And after Heather is Kevin Kennard.
Hi, my name is Heather Brunner. I'm from Aaron Prairie Township, just east of Richmond, a few miles on County Road K. Tonight I have a huge question. Have any of you board members been to Aaron Prairie? Have any of you been to Hammond Township? Physically been there, drove around, and looked? If not, I feel that you need to table this JDA agreement until you take the time to physically come to Aaron Prairie, physically come to Hammond Township, and physically attend an Aaron Prairie Township meeting or a Hammond Township meeting, and hear what the community has to say. I ask that you elected officials that we have chose to have you represent us and to protect us, take the time to table this JDA until all of the information and the studies can be done, especially well water and karst effects on homes within at least 5 to 10 miles of this solar project, projected project, so that we will have a baseline of and have water test within homes of 5 to 10 miles of the solar projected area, so that we will have a baseline of what our water is today and before they start construction, if this should pass. I ask that you test water. If they do construct this massive solar complex, I beg you to annually test many wells in the area, and this should be done yearly and paid for by Excel. If our water wells do go bad, I believe Excel will be held liable or should be held liable in a JDA agreement if you choose to write one, which is wrong. They will have to replace, repair, or do what it takes to make our water the way it was when or before they started. I want you to realize that we spend 3 to 4 days a week on this project. We have passionately tried so hard to educate the public, to tell people the good and the bad. We were at the county fair all weekend. We had plenty of responses. People are shocked. They cannot even believe it's happening. Excuse me, I lost my place. Now I am asking that you stand behind us and you protect us and you do what you are supposed to do. Get informed, know all of the facts before you agree to anything with Excel. They are not your friend. I am sad for the hours and hours that I have spent on this project, neglecting and not being with my children, and today is my grandson's 7th birthday, and I sit in this courthouse. I am sitting in a meeting in Hudson for something that we all should not even be discussing. This Excel project is dangerous. It is not green. It is a money grab. It will come to harm all of us who live within any reason of this area. Each and every one of you on this board need to take a hard look at what has been presented, and I beg you to table this so you can make an informed decision on what should happen. Once again, I thank you. I pray that you take the time to do some studies before you agree to anything with Excel. And I do ask, is Excel in this room tonight? Probably not. Are the farmers who signed their land in this room? Probably not. Are they here? Because if not, what are they ashamed of? What are they hiding? Why are they not here tonight to represent themselves, to brag about how wonderful this is, and show us and tell us how great this project will be and all the benefits it will bring us? As I said last month, the only thing Excel will never take from us is the friendships we have formed by being together 3 to 4 times a week. We have all worked, and we will continue to work until we can't. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Kevin, after Kevin is Renee Villari.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about my background. I'm an agricultural investigator. I do all 50 states and international. And I will guarantee you that I will see you in court come this straight voltage stuff. I'm an expert in testimony in straight voltage. And I've testified against Excel and also for Excel. And if you don't think it's going to happen, it will. The second thing is, where they're planned to put the batteries, if you would look at that, and they talk about the cars here all night long, there was a sinkhole there, which was 30 feet wide and 50 feet long and 5 feet deep. And this is where your batteries are going. This is what we talked about. All right? The second thing is, you approved last meeting for Semstone. What runs alongside the Semstone project? The 10-Mile Creek River. If you approve this solar development, how are you going to determine which project is contaminating that water with those wells you guys approved last time, those test wells? How are you going to do that? How are you going to determine that? That's all I have to say. Think about it. But I will. If this goes through, there will be straight voltage, and I will be in court testifying against Excel on this one. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Renee, and after Renee is Laura Kennard.
Thank you for letting me speak. This is my first meeting, so hopefully I can convey what I want. I've lived here for 10 years. I moved across the river. I lived in Cottage Grove. My name is Renee Valari. I live in Hudson Township. We left Cottage Grove to get away from Ashland Oil and 3M Chemelite, and they are now experiencing water problems from those entities down there, is what I'll call them. This is a land grab. Anytime a large energy corporation goes into do a land grab, we need to understand the reasons why. I don't think we as citizens in St. Croix County understand the real reasons why, other than they're saying they need this to support energy, which we don't know how that affects us. According to the EPA, solar panels are hazardous waste. They can tell us that they're recyclable, but actually only 20% of them are. The other 80%, they're trying to figure out how to recycle them, but they don't have an answer for that yet. So we need to understand that before we go and let them put 5,000 acres of a wasteland together for us. We're hearing that this is good for the environment. Others have spoken about this green thing. It's not green at all, as they have said. But what we really want to know is, does a corporation ever have our best interest in hand? Are they really there for that, or are they there for their own profits? We kind of know the answer to that, and we also know that Xcel Energy isn't really caring about the environment, because if you just Google Xcel Energy lawsuits, it's an endless list. So here are the questions that I have. I'm kind of a 40,000-foot view person. I want to know, where did they get the money to fund this project? Last 72 days of the last administration, $93 billion left the Department of Energy, went to all of these big energy corporations. I guarantee you follow the money, that's where it's coming from. So beyond that, who's going to benefit from this financially? Are we as citizens going to benefit for this? I don't think so. I think, honestly, if you follow the money, it goes back to the corporations, their board members, and whoever they're choosing to, do the project for them. So yeah, we just can't allow this to happen in our county.
Thanks, Renee. We have Laura, and after Laura, we have Bonnie Smith.
Hello, again, my name is Laura Connard, and I am a resident of Aaron Prairie Township. I echo Steve's comment that it's really hard to say all that matters on this. I understand you can only give us a few minutes, but I do renew my request for an additional forum so that all of our comments and questions can be considered. Again, consider moving this vote on the JDA, table it, give us time to work through this. I hope that you come to the conclusion that it's not in the residents' best interest. It's not what your constituents want. Another consideration I request for you is if this is brought to the board, the full board, on August 5th, that's National Night Out. It's not a night when a lot of residents will probably want to come here and talk. That's an event that's recommended to unite and bring the citizens together. So I think there's a conflict on time with that. I hope you'll vote yes to consider an intervention on the PSC application. Someone else talked about why that's important, what can be done, and or bringing a lawsuit if this does get approved at the PSC level for us. There's so many things I want to say, but I'm going to go to, hopefully in my last 30 seconds, I spent 2, if not 3 hours this morning in this room listening to a budget conversation. I was very impressed with the professionalism and knowledge of the administrator, Ken Witt. I also heard him talk about his negotiating style. It's take it or leave it. I hope you will take it or leave it and be on our side on this and fight with Excel and say, this isn't what our residents want. We're not protecting their health or safety needs. We're not protecting our land. We're not honoring the ag preservation, the rural nature of this culture, and we aren't here to help what the last speaker spoke about, the money grab, the energy grab. This isn't green. It's about money, and it's about padding the pockets of the shareholders. I also want to point out St. Croix County's logo, innovation through cooperation. Stand behind what you plaster on your wall. Do this as cooperation with us residents. Don't forge ahead on your own. I also want you to look at your vision and your mission. Strengthening social and economic future, providing for the health, safety, and well-being of all of us, not the few landowners that have leases, not Excel. So you're up here representing all of us. The vision is service with compassion and respect for people and the environment. This is not respecting Mother Earth. This is not green. Look at the totality of it. Look at the totality of the project and the needs and what it's serving. I also learned a lot in that budget meeting. I think it was Mr. Counter that talked about problems with the jail and helping fix the problem instead of just spending, was it $60 million to do a jail project?
Yeah, please.
I'll wrap up. Help the problems that get us to the point that we need new jail cells. Help the problems that need the farmers need to get a way out and not be able to have future farmers. Fix the right problem here. Thank you.
Thanks. We have Bonnie Smith, and after Bonnie is Roxanne Jorstad.
So I've been sitting here cutting this, trying to make it 2 minutes. So, do you care? We know Excel does not. Caring calls for action. Have you done any research yourself to know what will happen if you do nothing? It's easy to just sit back and let Excel schmooze you into thinking they all have your best interest in mind. If it weren't for the big money, they wouldn't do the solar land rape. Ask them to take the higher land that we can't use to plant crops, graze cattle, or build houses. Their answer is it's too hard, or is it too expensive? When Excel came to Hammond Township in March, they said, and it is on tape, we don't need you. I say, and will you please join us and say, then move on. We don't need you either. Or will you take the easy route and schmooze them as they move in? They say jump, you say how high. 5,000 acres of solar fields. I'm going to skip that because I only got 2 minutes. Okay. Let me touch on sinkholes, and I'm going to read right off of St. Croix County's website, and I'm only going to read a couple sentences for lack of time. St. Croix County is high risk for sinkholes. And down here it says groundwater in this area is extremely vulnerable to contamination. Either this is true or it's not, and you need to clear it up. The words high risk and extremely vulnerable should shake you to the core. It does me. This is no joke. Do you care? This is not a few years. This is not a few acres. This is thousands of acres. It's not a few years. It's a lockdown for 30 years. No one will be able to build, sell, plant, hunt, or fill in the blank. Think about this. In the 80s, Pine Lake emptied twice because of sinkholes. This could happen anywhere, anytime. Let me say this. People, cars, and houses fall into sinkholes. This is real. In some of my research, I asked, can 5,000 acres of construction be okay specifically in St. Croix County? Answer, construction activities and the weight of solar infrastructure could trigger sinkhole information or subsidence, which is gradual caving in or sinking of an area of land, leading to infrastructure damage of roads, bridges, buildings, and land. The warnings are everywhere when you look up St. Croix County. Why would you allow such a huge project of pounding and heavy weight, setting there for years, changing and shifting the karst underground? Sinkholes are like Russian roulette because they can be under the ground randomly. When and where they show up, no one really knows. Do you care? We cannot stay silent. Please stand with us and stop this insanity. Please care enough to do all you can for our generations and your generations. Please fight with us because we're going to fight. Thank you.
Thanks. Now, Roxanne Jorstad, and after Roxanne is Hannah Getty.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. American solar farms have detected unauthorized communication devices, or kill switches, in Chinese-made components. These hidden devices raise concerns that China could remotely manipulate power supplies, potentially destabilizing grids and causing widespread blackouts across the US, as well as the UK and Europe. Security experts are urging immediate reviews and heightened vigilance regarding Chinese-made equipment. American engineers found these kill switches. Energy officials are trying to find the risks posed by small communication devices in the power inverters. Inverters allow remote access for updates and maintenance, and usually utility companies using them install firewalls to prevent direct communication back to China. However, using these devices to skirt firewalls and switch off inverters remotely or change settings could destabilize grids, damage energy infrastructure, and trigger widespread blackouts. This is a built-in way to destroy the grid. And good luck getting replacement parts when panels fail. Where do you go with toxic-laden solar panels when they're damaged or not working? We saw firsthand what remote access does in our political elections. We ended up with selected, not elected officials. In southern Wisconsin, Rock County to be specific, a farmer who signed on to rent his land decided one day he was going to walk down and take a look at his pond. In minutes, the police showed up and he was escorted off his rented land and told to never set foot on his land again. In looking at your mission, vote no. Vote no to strengthen our economic future. Thank you.
Thank you. Hannah Getty's next. After Hanny is Sherry Croft.
My name's Hannah Getty. I live in New Richmond, and across the street from our family's home and property is where the solar panels would be installed. Oh, geez, this is hard. 600 feet from the house is where the new transmission lines would be, and 2 miles from our house is where the substation and battery storage would be. Oh, okay. I'm deeply concerned about the battery storage systems. Being surrounded by large-scale industrial utilities makes me feel like we will never be safe and healthy in our home again. The battery storage systems are shipping containers filled with highly volatile lithium-ion batteries loaded with lithium, nickel, manganese, and cobalt, and they're surrounded by cooling fluids and high-voltage cable. It only takes one battery for the entire battery storage unit to start on fire, and once ignited, they burn extremely hot, releasing hydrogen fluoride, hydrochloric acid, and heavy metal smoke into the air. This is a chemical fire. The JDA mentions nothing about a battery-specific fire response plan that follows the National Fire Protection Association, the NFPA 855 standards, nor does it ensure that our fire departments have the correct equipment and training. If our fire department is not prepared for this type of fire, according to the National Association of State Fire Marshals, responders within minutes could be in danger of dying from the toxic gas. After reading through the JDA, I have to ask, does this agreement in any way benefit the county? The draft appears to be one-sided and it only seems to benefit Excel. It's not so much what is in the document, but what isn't. The words are vague, and it leaves a lot of the final decisions up to Excel. Vote no on this draft.
Thank you. Sheree Croft, and after Sheree is Scotty Ard.
I'm Sherry Croft, and I live in Hudson Township. I thank you very much for having us here, and I thank those commenting. I have nothing more to add. They said more than what I ever planned. Teresa here, however, she came in late. She doesn't have a card or a piece of paper, but she has something to share. May she?
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Teresa Crampert. I am a resident of St. Joe Township for 28 years. I have personal experience with the karst landscape of this area. There were about 15 wells drilled after we moved into our house. Each well drilled affected the quality of our water. We had to flush our well from 3 to 7 days after each well was drilled to clear it out. We could not drink our water. We could not use our water to make food, wash our clothes. Please, I beg you, protect our groundwater.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Scotty Art, and after Scotty is David Meyer.
Good afternoon. I am Scotty Ard from the city of New Richmond, St. Croix County resident all of my life. The joint development agreement is a fool's play, and I think we all know that. None of us in this room would sign an agreement or a contract without knowing what's on page 2. Am I not correct? No one in the county would take an action on an agreement or on a proposal, regardless of what it was, if they could not see the second page. We don't know what's coming in phase 2. And what could be coming, aside from battery storage, is an expansion as data center power sources are desperately needed, and Wisconsin happens to have beautiful farmland to host those. Unfortunately, that also means that we would be losing our water rights because it takes hundreds of thousands of gallons to cool these centers, just as it takes water to cool battery storage systems if you are using the new technology. This joint development agreement does not uphold the rights of St. Croix County, its residents, its farmers, its businesses. As you, as elected officials, are looking for the health, safety, and welfare of persons in the county, then look to this, because the dollars will not matter when the land is gone. And as you know, St. Croix County is a sinkhole project site. The drilling, the constant hammering, the methodology which is used in order to put these posts in is exactly what will destroy our county and the townships which are involved in this site planning. That vibration can destroy, by moving through the karst, homes which are adjacent. I beg you, if you are not familiar with the project, it's on the website, educate yourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you. David Meyer. After David is Representative Rob Krybeck, yeah.
My name is David Meyer. I live in Erin Prairie. I urge you not to support this JDA. A JDA implies that both sides have provided input, and most of what I've read are the same types of things Excel's been telling us for months at the various town meetings. Some of the things I see in here are extremely vague. We're going to work with landowners. We're going to consider wildlife. What does that mean? What are you agreeing to? Entering into a JDA with no details of the entire project is crazy. You don't know the location of phase 2, what that's going to be exposing things to. You don't know the detail of the materials that are involved and the hazards that they could enter into the project. And this no changes clause, I couldn't imagine any type of agreement that I'd want to enter into that included something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Krybeck.
Thanks for allowing me to speak here. I strongly oppose any sort of agreement with Xcel Energy. We just defeated something they wanted in Madison. They wanted basically $2 billion of no-bid projects called right of first refusal. We defeated them there, and we can defeat them right here with your help. Let's do a quick review. Xcel Energy's first public hearing on this was at the Phipps Center, far away from Erin Prairie or Town of Hammond. Next, they backed out of a open forum session at Northwood Tech. They still have not had an in-person meeting to answer questions in the town of Erin Prairie. I was never notified. I'm the state rep for this area. I was never notified by Xcel. This is pure arrogance. It is time to stand with the people and against the special interests. We passed 3 bills in Madison in May that deal with nuclear energy, and Republicans and Democrats don't agree on much, but they agree that is the future, not wind or solar. So 3 of the 5 top startups in the state of Wisconsin are based in Madison. We have 100 sunny days a year here. Solar is obsolete before it's even built. So there's no need to go ahead here. Let's focus on solar. The only reason we're here is because Minnesota banned solar, or wind, or I'm sorry, they banned nuclear. And otherwise, this would be over there as a nuclear project. So I strongly encourage you to vote against this. We only have 100 sunny days a year in Wisconsin, so this will produce little or no energy, and we have a lot of AI data centers that are coming to Wisconsin. They consume tremendous amounts of power that really a solar project is not going to meet the needs there. So I strongly encourage you to vote against any agreement with Xcel.
Thank you. John Van Dyke.
I wasn't going to speak tonight, but hearing some of these things, I have to read some of it. One of the mission statements of a town board chairman, which I've been doing for 24 years, is to conduct the business of the town and provide for the safety and well-being of its residents. I think we need to do that. Let me give an example. In 1980, New Richmond had a landfill, a DNR-approved landfill. It was the city, the town of Star Prairie, Stanton, Richmond, and Erin Prairie. 4 years later, it was contaminated with PFAS and forever chemicals. 14 homes were affected. The city had to bring water to those people. They had to have charcoal filters so they could even wash dishes or take showers. Water lines were put in, and at a cost of $18 million, there were 12 test wells. 40 years later, there's still 3 test wells. The city, the 4 towns are still paying after 40 years. We need to protect this water. We have that lime pit. It's not called a gravel pit, it's a lime pit. It's a quarter mile from my farm. When we built the shed, all I had to do was dig down 2 feet and I had lime rock. The characteristic of lime rock, it has a lot of veins in it. When farmers in their stanchion barns, they would have to shut the water off at night because all the farmers would turn irrigation on when it got dry. It would flood the barn. They shut the water off. It's got a lot of fines in it. It follows into that water, main water line. And you're absolutely right. It's going to be cloudy when they start pounding all these pillars in. Now, I don't trust Xcel. They should have come to the town board first. They didn't. Instead, I got a letter wanting to know if I wanted to sign up land. And I wouldn't do that to my residents. We decided to have a meeting. The town board decided to have a meeting at the Rooster. They canceled it. Then I went to Northwoods. They canceled that. Then it went to a Zoom where the XL was asking the questions. They never answered any questions that I asked them. So I don't trust them. They've come to the county board, they come to zoning, they've never come to Aaron Prairie. And that's where we got 2,600 acres and 620 acres in Hammond. They should have been coming to us. We never heard a thing about these batteries until just recently. These batteries are the size of a cargo container. They're lithium-ion batteries. I'm on 2 fire department boards. You can't get these things out. They burn internally. And it'll take 4 hours to sprinkle a little water on it. Now we find out these fire departments are responsible for the cleanup of the water they put on these batteries. And it's absolutely right, a half mile from a big sinkhole. I talked to the son of the owner. It was 30 feet wide, 50 feet long, 5 feet deep. We had a tornado in May. Granted, it was just an EF1, but it did damage. And right where that tornado is where we've had more tornadoes. That's our tornado alley. And we had hail. It was 3 miles wide, 10 miles long, all the way up to New Richmond, and started on the south end of our property. And it did tremendous damage. I cannot believe that these plastic solar panels would stand up to that. Consider this, people. We don't want it. We don't need it. We are a farmland preservation county. That's with the county. It's with the state. We are our comprehensive plan. First line in there, we are agriculture. We want to remain agriculture. That was the legislation that we were forced to do. We had to do a comprehensive plan. It took 2 years and a lot of people, but we did it and we got it done. And that's the determination. We knew they were going to come to Aaron Prairie.
John, I'll ask you just wrap up real quick.
Very good. Yeah. We knew they were going to come to Aaron Prairie because they want big fields with little slope. But think about the rainwater. We've had a lot of rain this year. This ground's getting saturated. Now you got 4-foot panels and all the water's coming to one spot. It's going to cause a lot of erosion. And once you lose that topsoil, you won't get it back. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other member of the public who has not spoken yet, who has something to say on this issue? Any other public comment on this issue? Any other public comment on this issue? All right, we're going to close the public comment. We do appreciate you all coming and giving us your thoughts and concerns with the project. And I definitely wrote down a few notes that we will use here, or consider here at least. Can't speak for everybody, but Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm not sure how the committee really wants to proceed, or if you feel like you've even got enough information to proceed. But I guess originally I was gonna look for any feedback or concerns that the committee had with the joint development agreement now that you've heard from the public. And then as staff, we would take those comments and those feedback back to Excel and hopefully have some answers by the August 5th county board meeting. Or if the committee feels like you've got enough information right now in this current draft to decide on what that process looks like going forward, if the county wants to do the intervenor or if they want to do the JDA, and that we don't need to go back to Excel in between now and the 5th. However, in that it's important to know that we'll probably, if the county decides to do the JDA process, there will be more meetings and that will be going out to the town of Aaron Prairie, the town of Hammond. There'll be another hearing here at the community development level and probably the county board as well. So this is just kind of starting this process. I realize that there's a lot of people that probably don't feel like it's been open and transparent enough. But with that, I would just turn it over and that how the committee wants to proceed.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
Well, I'll start it off. I have a few things I got to say, and then I will let the rest of the committee say, and then I would like to make a motion after that. But to start off, Xcel Energy released these maps on June 4th. Their requirement is that 30 days after releasing these maps, they can submit to the Public Service Commission. So some of our public talked about tabling the JDA. Tabling the JDA is a bad idea because at any point, they could submit to the Public Service Commission. And I asked last month and this month to have this on this meeting for that very reason. Because we need to make this up or down vote on moving forward with the JDA or not, and then get the full county board to do so after us. To go back on this project, I think most of us, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I think most of us will agree that this is a horrible project that none of us would want in our backyard, let alone our county, no matter where we live in it. This was all started off by Xcel saying that they wanted to close the King plant, and they needed to find another energy source to make up for the fact of that King plant. Now, they're hiding behind the idea of closing the King plant because it's past its usable life. But Xcel Energy, for the last 5 years or more, has said that they want to be carbon free. So that's the reason why we're closing the King plant. Onto tax credits. With the passage of the federal, the big beautiful bill, they need to be, their deadlines are now to be in the ground by July 4th of 2026. Otherwise, they will lose full tax credits. So, in my opinion, that's just another layer of why we need to intervene in the Public Service Commission to make sure that they don't try to fast track or early start this project just so that they can get their tax credits. Xcel has also said, whether they get their tax credits or not, the project's still going forward. Well, we all know that if the tax credits go away, what does that mean? All of us that pay Xcel for energy are getting increased fees or increased energy costs. So yes, the county does need to protect our residents on multiple fronts here. When they released this map, I'm sure a lot of you can't see it from here, but many of you have seen this. I can't believe that Xcel even released this map with the huge dot in the center of St. Croix County, and this is half of the project. If I was Xcel, there's no way I'd release this map. This looks horrible. And then, on top of all that, we have what's considered a solar facility. Well, if you look at this map, this isn't a solar facility, this is a solar campus. A solar facility is a contiguous landmass. So I think there are definitely some legal arguments to be made. There are a few supervisors on this board, not necessarily on this committee, that have said, we need to move forward with the JDA because it's the best we're going to get. We don't have any rights. The Public Service Commission and the state stripped away our rights. This is the best we're going to get. We should move forward. I wholeheartedly disagree with them. And I think that's a horrible thing to say to our residents that, well, we tried, but we know we're not going to win, so here you go. This project has just, the project itself has such problems with not only taking away productive farmland preservation, the way the state statutes read with Public Service Commission strips away all of our local municipalities, our county ordinances. All of those municipalities have comprehensive plans, future growth maps, extraterritorial maps. Public Service Commission doesn't care. Those are all out the window, according to state statute, to serve the purpose of a three-panel board that sits down in Madison to make this decision. So I would agree that this JDA needs to be voted down. We need to walk away. And we need to enter into an intervener role with the Public Service Commission. The other part, a lot of people have mentioned number one in the agreement with the county agrees not to require changes, and that the Public Service Commission is the sole jurisdiction of the project. On paper, that may be correct, maybe being the main word, that the Public Service Commission has full jurisdiction. I'm not entirely sold on that. There are current lawsuits on the Public Service Commission on rubber stamping projects through their plan, not doing their due diligence. And I'll also mention there was a lawsuit in Michigan that overturned the Public Service Commission, essentially will overturn the Public Service Commission entirely. Now, the only reason I mention that is because Michigan and Wisconsin are very similar to how their Public Service Commission is set up. So, if we do agree to this JDA and any of these lawsuits turn our way, we're just out of luck because we already agreed to it. So, what else was I going to say? The other part of the JDA at the end, with the severability contract or clause in there, can be argued that the clause in there about unenforceable items, you could make the legal argument that the unenforceable items means that the PSC decision differs from what the JDA says. So they could get out of everything that's in this JDA if the Public Service Commission also agrees with them. So I'll let my other my fellow committee members talk for a while, and then I'd like to entertain a motion after that.
Well, again, thank you all for coming tonight. It's good to see involvement. For us to sit here and make the decisions by ourselves is difficult. It's kind of tenuous, even with the amount of people saying. So you don't know that I have a shop in Baldwin, and my shop is quite busy. At coffee time, it gets real busy sometimes. And so I've kind of kept track. I've had a lot of people talk to me. Now, I'm in the village of Baldwin. The village of Baldwin has no skin in this. It isn't next to us or anything like that. And I'm not opposed to solar energy, but I'm opposed to 5,000 acres of solar energy in one spot. So a lot of people come through, and I've been keeping track in my mind about how many. I probably have talked to 75 or 100 people. And of those people, only one person was in favor of it. And that's one of the farmers who's getting the money. And I don't blame him for signing into this. It's a great deal for him. But I think it was brought up several times tonight that we do represent the people. I represent the people from Baldwin who are telling me we shouldn't do this, and I agree we should not. Like I said, I don't disagree with solar, but I do disagree with this much, and so I too think that the JDA probably we should seriously consider just burning it. Even though you've done a lot of work and your work is fine, but I think I'd rather take the chance on the people backing us than whatever we might get from XL Energy. Thank you.
Thanks, Supervisor Summerlin, Supervisor Connor, Supervisor Rice. Supervisor Rice, go ahead.
Well, this can be an intimidating group. So let me start. I want some clarification, and I might have to defer to our council. Could you be clear for us on exactly what authority a county board has under current law relative to the PSC?
So the authority that the county would have, the county board could recommend that we intervene in any application that's filed with the PSC. And that's pursuant to PSC section 2.21 related to intervention. So that's the authority that we would have. We would be intervening either by right or permissive intervention, whichever section would apply.
I think she means about approval of the project.
Oh, you mean approval of the,
Approval of the project.
so the county doesn't have any authority. So none of the local political subdivisions have any authority to make any decisions regarding an application related to solar energy if it's over 100 megawatts. And so that decision relies solely with the PSC. And so the county can intervene and give some opinions related to certain things, but the approval authority remains solely with the Public Service Commission.
So, this might be a little tricky here, but in an intervener role, do we have any cases that we can look at to say this is the blueprint for how to do it?
On how to fight
Yes.
against it. Unfortunately, most of the case law that has either been decided or pending has been in favor of the PSC. So I did send the county board the one case, the town of Christiani, that the Court of Appeals sided with the PSC. That town has requested the Supreme Court of Wisconsin to review that case. That was just filed at the beginning of July. So if the Supreme Court of Wisconsin agrees to hear that case, there might be some Wisconsin Supreme Court decisions related to solar energy and the PSC's decision-making process, but that could be a year or two from now. So the legal research I've done, and Jason can probably speak to that too, has been mostly upholding the PSC's decisions to approve solar energy projects. Mainly because the policy of the state of Wisconsin and the statutes indicates that it's the policy of the state to support wind and solar energy. And so the PSC follows that state policy. Obviously, there is 25 Senate Bill 3 that's pending right now in the legislature, which would give not counties, but towns, villages, and cities the right to object to wind or solar energy projects. But that's not approved. It hasn't been passed by the legislature or approved by the governor, but that is pending right now.
Right. I just wanted to level set, because the work I did prior to this verified that fighting the PSC is one big thing, and it's deliberately set up to be an independent, non-political group. And so, yeah, I'm in favor of nuclear too, and it usually takes about 30 years to do one of those. But nobody's going to ask for my opinion on nuclear energy. I also come at it a little different. I grew up in Prescott, downstream from the King plant, and I do remember my parents not being happy at all when that plant was built up in Bayport. Our water in the St. Croix heated up a little bit. They did mitigate some of that. We had dog days earlier, and there was a lot of, before they put good filters on the top of that King plant, all of which the smoke goes into Wisconsin. People were not happy about it, but then after we learned to live with it, right? So I'm coming at this, and I did speak with one of the gentlemen here at the county fair to say I want to make sure and I'm sure all of the rest of my fellow county board members want to do the same thing, that we do right by the people here. And I look at a joint development agreement and say, I don't know what the future holds, but if we can get some concessions out of Excel that we wouldn't get otherwise, some of which are on this document, I'd like to see us pursue that. I would add some more, including having Excel pay. And I think one of our speakers here talked about groundwater. There was a lot of concerns about quality of groundwater. I have those concerns, and most of that's ag-related right now. But having them pay for groundwater testing for surrounding private wells, that there be an emphasis on hiring local installers for fencing and other work, and also that they come back on a post-implementation plan and tell us they intended to do this. How did that go? Purchase and source as many panels domestically as they could was one of the statements I remember saying. And of course, they can say a lot in the plan, but where we're at right now is sort of like the analogy I would make is if I decide to build a house, and I start to talk to somebody about some ideas about what I want, I haven't even defined my square footage. That's kind of where we're at here. And if we make some requests of Excel now, we are likely to get them to say yes. If we wait until they built the house and then come back, we're not going to get anything for anybody. So it's, the unknown right now is whether or not the PSC, with or without, are advocating on behalf of those who've spoken today, whether or not it will pass anyway. And that's why I look at a JDA as a chance to get some concessions we wouldn't otherwise. So.
Supervisor Connor, do you have any thoughts or concerns or?
I also want to thank everybody for coming and sharing a lot of information tonight. It was very helpful, so thank you for being here. To start with, have a lot of concerns on where we're going with this, with Excel, and hearing a lot of that Excel hasn't approached the towns. They haven't followed through with organizational meetings to try to make the public aware of the projects and where that's going. It seems to be in bad faith with where they should be doing and where they should be working to try to work with the people that are being impacted by this. Granted, there will be some that benefit from it, but overall, to do repairs on anything that happens, as Chairman Van Dyke had brought up, I dealt with the one with New Richmond too, and that can be very long-reaching if there becomes a problem. And so with the karst areas and things to be concerned about, and with the mapping, being that the mapping of those areas aren't even on there, I think there's a lot more that needs to be addressed before we could even consider something like this. And overall, I'm having a hard time being in favor of even the consideration of it versus supporting dealing as an intervener. Mainly because we just don't, there's too many unknowns. There's, even like you talked about part in there for roads, that they would be brought back to pre-construction standards. So that mean if it was a 25-year-old town road that they're gonna say, well, we'll pay for 5 years worth of the cost of that road and the rest of the town's gonna have to pick up, because you're going to what that pre-construction, there's just too many variables in this that it isn't addressed very, very well. Even like the funds for the schools, $50,000 today versus 35 years from now, how much does the 50,000 buy in 35 years? So I just see too many things that don't add up in a positive sense for what an advantage for that we're gonna be able to come out on this. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a couple things. I'll let you make your motion, but I'm gonna, I guess, state my piece. I'm in agreement that I do not want this project in St. Croix County. And there are a lot of things pointed out in the JDA from the public that I kind of overlooked, and I appreciate you mentioning them. Things like requiring a third-party contractor to do a lot of the individual inspections. The decommissioning plan was nice, but decommission restoration is different, so I appreciate that pointing out as well. Decommission is worthless if it's just a rock pit in the ground and it's not brought back or restored. And then a specific plan around battery-related fires is critical, especially if they're putting a second or a battery storage facility here. And then as well as I'm also concerned about signing a JDA that without knowing what the scope or the map looks like for phase 2. So that's kind of where my head's at, and that's kind of my piece. Now, Supervisor Shirley, you wanted to make a motion.
Yes, I wanted to clear up one thing. I've pulled up several of the last Public Service Commission agreement or decisions, sorry, and there is nothing and I mean nothing, in this JDA that we won't get from the Public Service Commission. Even the community grant that's in there, Xcel Energy, with the way that they've handled this project, has such a public perception problem that if us not signing a JDA pulls the community grant out of it, what the heck does that say? So that's really the only thing that the JDA can't tell them to do. But in this JDA, they've kind of agreed to it already, so they're kind of stuck. If they pull it now, then I guess that's fine, but that's, for not signing a JDA, that the rest of it is literally useless. The setbacks, the fencing, the emergency preparedness, training, and all of that, they're all in Public Service Commission agreements. They're all in there. We're not gaining anything, to be perfectly honest, on what's in this JDA right now. So I would make a motion that we stop discussions on the JDA with Xcel Energy, and we recommend to the full county board for the August 5th meeting that we bring a vote there to stop the JDA and not go further down in that direction.
Supervisor Counter seconds. Any further discussion on the motion? Yes, Supervisor Van Summer, go ahead.
Just one question. Do you want to also add in that we then become an intervener?
Not yet.
Or do you want to?
That's my next motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the motion would have to be amended if.
Right.
at this point.
But it'd be good to know that before we decide that, if that's what your plan is.
I would like to make this motion first, and then we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, new question, Supervisor Perez?
No, I'll ask at the next motion.
Yeah, perfectly fine. Everyone ready for the vote? Any further discussion? All those in favor of Supervisor Shirley's motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Passes 4-1 for recommendation of the county board. I believe you had another motion you referenced, Supervisor Shirley.
So I would like to do a second motion with the same parameters to bring to the county board on August 5th, that we move to be an intervener in the Public Service Commission when this project is submitted.
I'm going to ask Corp Counsel a question real quick. Since there's no explicit business item referencing intervening, is this, I guess, copacetic?
I would say that it's allowed because it's
Related.
generally discussing the Xcel Energy project.
Sure.
Project, and intervention is the opposite of the JDA, so I would
Sure.
say yes.
Sure, okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Supervisor Van Summer, seconds. I believe Supervisor Reyes said something.
So my question is, are these mutually exclusive, meaning a JDA or intervening? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because one could play off the other.
Yes, if we sign the JDA in the current form, we cannot be an intervener.
All right.
I guess, yeah, to clarify, there's a world where we don't sign a JDA but don't file as an intervener. But in my opinion, there's no world where I would be in favor of that direction, right? But, so that's, I guess, the middle ground you could take, but, yeah. Another question?
So the notion of intervener is new to me. Tell me what you think that role is. Could someone explain?
I probably am not an expert on intervention, but based on my research, the county would be allowed to intervene. In speaking with Jason, we could have experts, that we would hire that would testify on the certain environmental impacts. Obviously, the PSC uses the DNR to give them expert opinions on regulations related to natural resources. We'd have an attorney represent us regarding our objections to whatever parts of the application we didn't agree to. So there's certain roles. Everything is on a public docket, and so anybody can go to the PSC website and look at, previous cases that have been filed. If the county intervenes, that doesn't mean that the towns couldn't intervene, other parties that are affected directly couldn't intervene. So even if the county board votes to intervene or not to intervene, that doesn't exclude the towns from intervening themselves or people that are directly affected by the program.
Yeah, I mean, we just represent the county government, not every municipality that is within the county. Yeah. Yes.
There'd also be some costs involved in that. We talked about the experts and if we end up hiring outside legal support for it. So just be aware of that. We'll try to put some estimates together before it gets to the county board, so you have some idea of what you're voting on at that point. But right now, we really don't know, other than there'd be something.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor.
I think there's also different versions of how we would want to intervene, or to what level. We can move forward with lawsuits, we can move forward with, all different kinds of things, or we could spend a lot of money or a little money. I mean, there's a wide gamut there, I think, that we would eventually have to figure that out. But I think for now, just the idea of, do we want to intervene?
Go ahead, Supervisor Rice.
Many of the topics that have come before us in my year on this committee have to do with clean water issues. And many of the people who spoke today are concerned about cars, and we are aware of our geology here. And I'm wondering whether or not that couldn't be part of what we discover. We have been doing some water testing, free clinics, and I don't know anyone who didn't have their nitrate level go up, and that has nothing to do with solar farms. That has everything to do with the ag processes that are being used. So in this case, I would vote for it.
Any further thoughts, just comments, discussion on voting to recommend that we become an intervener and passing that on to the county board? All right. With that being said, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. And again, to members of the public at camp, we do appreciate you coming. Your input is valued for sure. And with that, I think we're going to call it a 10-minute break and come back at 7:46.
Thank you. Yeah, you bet.
Good meeting. We were kind of in the loop on that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, hey.
Sounds good to see you, Rob.
You're watching.
And the ag report, I didn't mention it, but that's top of the line. We grade it, like the county board seed, that's grade A farm. And the ag report on this project says it's gonna.
What's that?
So.
All right, 2 minutes late, but we're going to call this meeting back to order. We're at agenda item number 5, the discussion on a renewable energy systems ordinance. Jason.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, I maybe seemed like I was favorable of the JDA before. This agenda item is really more of the opposite of that. So if the county intervenes in the Public Service Commission process, and if we go down there and tell the PSC, well, we just don't like it, or we don't think it fits in our county, we might not have a lot of support from the PSC. And so this ordinance is using all of the various statutory provisions and administrative code provisions to try to lay some groundwork of emergency management training and a lot of just general performance standards, I'll say, that we've seen in the JDA. But any ordinance provision that we have, I got it highlighted there, must be related to preserving and protecting public health and safety without significantly increasing the cost or decreasing the efficiency of a renewable energy system per Wisconsin Stats 66.0401 and 66.0403. Alternative systems or locations of comparable cost and efficiency are also required if an ordinance restriction can't be met. And so those are basically 3 bullet items in 660401 that any provision that we have in the ordinance must satisfy one of those criteria. That's our main reasoning for having that provision. And so when we drafted this ordinance back in January for St. Croix County, we used the actual statutes and the administrative code to draft the provisions. And so I don't know for time purposes and that how much you want to go through this draft ordinance. Supervisor Shirley had also provided us draft or an actual ordinance from Kenosha County on battery storage. And so I went through that ordinance, and of course, a lot of the general provisions and administrative stuff is the same. But there was some provisions in that I felt we didn't have in this draft ordinance. And so those were provided here in the packet in red. And so some of it was just some plain oversight about the wetland floodplain regulations, general lighting like we would normally see, screening and landscaping, noise study, and that where their power lines are, that is preferred to be underground versus above ground. And then, the actual battery storage being monitored and that 24 hours a day. I think all of these provisions here are, satisfying the criteria of public health and safety and the public, and it doesn't necessarily overly burdensome the developer on cost. So this standalone ordinance would be very similar to like a shoreline zoning overlay, and that you guys are very familiar with that. Because the shoreline zoning overlay is an ordinance and that we as a county administer across the whole county, whether or not the towns and that have their own zoning or if they have county zoning. So this ordinance would be effective in all towns. But yet if a town had an ordinance provision regarding a renewable energy system, if it was more restrictive, and that their provision would apply, not the county's provision. And basically, this ordinance is a conditional use permit process. I've said it before, but I tend to like to have CUPs because on that it allows you to take and evaluate each site or each project on a case-by-case basis. For example, 3 megawatt solar facility might be treated a little differently than a 99 megawatt facility. So that's the reason for the CUP. Again, this ordinance would be for facilities 99 megawatts and smaller. There's a lot more performance requirements in here than we've got in any of our current ordinance. But for like the Excel project, and that we wouldn't be able to require them to comply with our ordinance, but if we intervene, we could use our ordinance to say, hey, a project that was 99 megawatts would require emergency management training, and we would like to see Excel, agree to those same standards. And so Whether or not the Public Service Commission would grant those wishes and that, we don't know, of course. But at least we'd be able to take and put our feedback, our input in that process and tie it back to a current county policy. So that's kind of what I've got on this. And that if we're interested, we would file a petition, we would have a public hearing, and we would move forward with that process. But the county might want to wait until after the county board meeting on August 5th to see how that process really plays out before we spend a lot of time tonight going provision by provision. At least that's kind of my thought process.
Yes, Supervisor Shirley?
I guess there's a couple things that I would like to see a little bit. I think I gave a copy to you too, Jason, the battery storage packet that I printed off today and gave to everybody. I think Corp Council is going to verify some stuff on battery storage and how that that pertains to the larger projects. So we'll have to wait on some of that. But I would like a definition in there in our definition section for what a solar facility is. So when I search solar facility, it says an installation designed for the large-scale generation of electricity from solar energy where all the land parcels comprising of the facility are physically adjacent and form an uninterrupted area.
Where did you get that definition from?
I'll send it to you.
Okay. So Supervisor Shirley, I presume you would want the definition that's currently in there on page 4 of 19 for solar energy system to be something more closer to what you just read. Right now it says solar energy system means a man-made system that transforms solar energy into another form of energy or transfers heat from a solar collector to another medium using mechanical, electrical, or chemical means.
I would say that definition is okay, but we should add a definition for a solar facility.
Okay.
Any objections to that from the, just indications from the committee? No? Okay, keep going. Anything else you wanna, or just start?
I would
there?
agree that we need to find out what direction the county board wants to go before we go too deep into this, and then get some more answers on the battery storage for the larger projects. And then we'll know how to really form this.
Yeah, so I guess, I don't think we need a motion. I think we can call this agenda item done for now with the anticipation of bringing it back up. Yes, yes. And we can always have it there, and after the meeting, if, like, I can, without it being a formal motion, I can just move it with discretion of the chair, right? Go ahead, Supervisor Counter.
The other thing, as we're doing this, I'd like to also have consideration for a lot of the things that were brought up tonight from, dealing with cars, dealing with all of these other things that we're trying to address some of these things to ensure that we have that in our thought process as we're having people come in to apply for these larger facilities. So there was, one gentleman talked about the cars and had somebody else talking about, water contamination and samplings. And so there may be a lot of things that we may want to consider as we're considering this type of an ordinance.
All right. I think with that being said, we can move on to agenda item number 6, the discussion on Chapter 11.
Yeah, Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a item that was tabled at last month's meeting. If you recall, last month we had Danny Atkinson from Grow here to talk about the Ridge Breeze Dairy down in Pierce County. And the Breeze Group also owns the Croix Breeze Dairy. So that's not necessarily related to Chapter 11, though. Chapter 11 was being discussed as far as whether or not signed landowner agreements should be required, and that from landowners that have their acreage included in somebody else's nutrient management plan as part of their waste disposal plan. And so that is really what this agenda item is. If the committee decides and that to pursue that ordinance amendment, we've already got it drafted pretty much. So we would just need to file a petition with the county clerk and then schedule the public hearing.
Thoughts, questions, concerns on the opening?
Yeah, I'd like to see us include a requirement in the manure storage ordinance that all land application agreements shall be made with the landowner to make sure that we're closing the loop on that. I'd also like to see us consider, I understand that the Ridge, what is it called, Ridge Breeze Dairy Group is transporting manure from Pierce County regularly. You're nodding your head, Jerry, because it's going through Baldwin. And I'd like to see us consider penalties for that. I mean, I think we have something in there that prohibits transportation into the county, but it's happening. And we need to show some muscle on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that's why we need to deal with this now, because Breeze Dairy evidently knows that they can't, but they are. And a reason is because of an email that all of us got that said that the DNR has shut down 2,000 acres that they had planned on putting manure on. And the DNR said, no, that can't be put on. So now they haul it up here on our karst land where we shouldn't let them put it in. But I'm guessing they brought it up here to spread. I don't think they brought it up here for display. And so I think we have to go, like you originally had it written up, you know, when we started this whole process. I think that was well done. I think you just mentioned the same thing, Carrie, that it has to be something that is signed by the landowner and by the person who's renting the land. That's our only way to police. That's the only way we can put teeth into this, is if we know where it's got to go. And I'd like to think that farmers aren't liars, but maybe either farmers are liars or liars are farmers. I don't know. But it can, we're seeing this happen, and you know it's going to happen again if it happens now. And the other way to deal with it would be have the producers group that we talked about and gave them, and backed off on that because of them, maybe make them the ones who have to police it, but I don't think it'd be policed then either. So I think we have to move ahead with this. Thank you.
Supervisor Connor, Shirley, any thoughts or opinions, Supervisor Shirley?
I agree that the one bad player that's in our county, we need to figure out something with it. I mean, staff knows about it. They know who it is. To open up the ordinance again to deal with one bad player when the rest of our producers are following the rules, as far as we know, and doing everything the way that they're supposed to do them, seems, since we just got done doing it, seems a little not right in my mind. And there's no way that I would ever support having them produce signed agreements. Having a private company agreement at the county so that somebody can make a public records request, I would never support that.
I guess my question is, if we find that manure, and, you know, there's been a lot, we know it's happening, sure. But, and I'm not denying that it is, or that we know it is, what, I guess, enforcement mechanisms do we have right now, the way it's currently written? And maybe that's a question for,
That's a good question, because I don't deal with this ordinance every day. But I believe that we do have provisions about bringing manure into the county and that from a different facility. Just this week, though, on Monday, yesterday, I guess, and that I did talk with Jeff Jackson with the DNR. He's their CAFO permitting specialist, and they're bringing in 2.5 million gallons of manure. And their main reason is because their facility in Pierce County is going through the expansion right now, and their new manure lagoon down there isn't sized appropriately, or they were running out of storage because that new one's not done yet, so they would need to take and get that new one operational for their waste. I know that's a little bit off topic and that with the agenda item here, but, and that's what we know.
But that doesn't make it right to do that unless they ask us. But they didn't. They're just hauling it in. And that's why, yes, I agree with you that the producers seem to be doing well. I spoke to 2 different producers about this, and both of them said if we required a signed transcript, it really wouldn't affect their operation much at all, because most of those are neighbors, and most of the neighbors they talk with anyway. Every year, and they talk with, you know, multiple times, because some of them are trying to do a good job. So, yeah, most of them said it's not really going to be a big deal for us. And I think, yes, there's one bugger now, okay, but tomorrow there might be 2. You know, well, again, some of the owners of some of the present large dairies are getting older, and they're going to sell them, and we're going to be dealing with and other things. That's why I think we have to do it. Now, as far as not having a signed document, why not? I mean, they sign a document. There are documents signed all of the time, and yes, there might be somebody that wants it. We could make it more difficult to come and get from the county. They may have to come and get a paper copy, and may have to pay for that copy, and they may have to show up in face-to-face with our staff to get it. That certainly would deter a person from that. I never could figure out why that was an issue. I mean, if somebody knows that manure is being spread on your ground and he couldn't spread it there, what issue would that be to another farmer? Because they said it would probably be another producer. That's what they said in a forum meeting. And so what difference would that make to them? I think that was a way of them saying, we don't want to bother with this. That's it. We don't want to be bothered with this. So, but I think that we can't just let that go. To me, that's sloppy business if we let this go as it is. And yes, we just did go through that section, but I think it shows we're pretty big people when we admit that we have to go back and do it again. Not that we're wasting time, but this committee is big enough to say, you know, that wasn't a good idea.
I'm gonna make one thing. I see both sides of this. I think there's a difference between requiring there being a signed agreement and requiring the county to have a copy of the signed agreement, right? Because if we don't have the copy and it's just producible when requested, then it's not necessarily susceptible to public records if we don't have it. But anyway.
But how would we know then? Again, if I can quote the Breeze Dairy, they said they had these signed things, but part of them were in St. Croix County. They didn't have a sign. They spread manure on at least 4 places that didn't have a sign on anything, and they weren't supposed to.
Well, then you have enforcement action because they violated your ordinance, right?
But if we headed off at the pass, that's my point here. Let's do that.
Or Supervisor Shirley?
In the Breeze Dairy case, when they're doing their project in Pierce and they ran out of room or storage and shipped up here, it sounds like they talked to DNR about it. Are they required to talk to us about projects like that with CAFOs, or do they turn to the DNR and that's it?
So it gets a little bit more complex because they're already a permitted CAFO too. So it's not like they got a new permit from us. And so that's where, and that I would have to go back to the old version of chapter 11, and that the one that they had when they were permitted, because there is a CUP on that permit, and really dig in to see what the requirements were at that time versus our new ordinance to be able to do it. So even technically right now, the nutrient management plan side of it though is a annual requirement that they have to submit annually. So the signed reports and that would go into effect. It's more like an annual license or a reoccurring permit on like a building or something like that, that they just need to keep on going. So,
But if they have an issue like that, do they not need to amend their plan mid-season?
correct. They have to submit the amendments to the DNR, and our staff would also be wanting to make sure that they got the land
Right.
base and that for that 2.5 mil.
And that's the other thing to think about when you were talking about opening this ordinance back up to require these agreements. Now we're gonna be requiring the agreements of new producers. The old ones are all grandfathered in, so it's not gonna matter. So that's another thing to think about, at what level we're changing them for people that aren't here yet, not necessarily for the problem child that's already here.
Is that true? Won't
No,
that ordinance?
and that- the opposite, and
Yeah.
that because they apply for a nutrient management plan every year, and that the new ordinance requirement for a nutrient management plan would kick in, so, yep.
So it is really required, the NMP is. And then once again, they may say that their storage is being redone, and maybe it is, but this comes from the Pierce County Journal, the newspaper. The DNR rejects 2,000 acres from Ridge Breeze manure spreading plan after public pushback. So that's the truth too. Is that why they're hauling enough manure up here for 2,000 acres? I would guess that's why. And they may say, well, we don't quite have it done, but this didn't come up for me, this comes from the newspaper.
Yeah, I guess I would caution against using an individual instance to represent the whole ordinance, right? I understand that this is an example, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but let's, I guess, use that as an example and not the whole reasoning. And I don't think that's what you're doing. I just wanted to address that. Uh-huh.
Just showing that this is not something I trumped up, it's right here, yeah. And it is serious enough. Most of the people tonight that we're talking about, not most, many of the people tonight who are talking about the solar deal also mentioned clean water, clean water, clean water, clean water. This is a clean water issue. That's all it is a clean water issue. And you can tell by the number of people who mention that, how important that is to them, to me too, and to you. That's why I think we have to do it now. Why let it go farther where we're gonna pollute our water to a greater extent than it is? If we have karst, which we have karst, if you look online about dairy farming in Wisconsin, they talk about a time when they will not allow dairy farms in western Wisconsin where the karst is. And so that could be very real. We could be deciding much more severe things in the future than just assigned NMP. I rest my case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Supervisor Rice.
There's a lot of affection for agriculture, and you can see it. I mean, I love looking at cornfields too, and watching them grow. But modern day agriculture is so different than what I grew up with. It has about the relationship as this phone does to a rotary phone. They are not the same. The CAFOs that exist in our county are all applying to expand. So we need to get a handle on exactly what our responsibility is. Once you lose the clean water, you may not get it back for decades. And then there's a cost. Right now, I look at it, and you've heard me say this before, that there's a indirect tax for people having to install these RO systems. They're expensive to install and maintain. reverse osmosis. And boy, if we can save people from having to do that, or the health effects that come from excessive nitrates and phosphates in the surface waters, you know, it's prevention cure kind of thing. So, you know, I talked about the hauling example. I don't know what kind of penalties we have in our ordinance for someone who violates that. I don't even know what a dollar amount would be that would be a sufficient deterrent. But it seems like we have to do something to stop the transfer of manure and to secure, I know in talking with Tim Steiber, he said, you know, with the soil testing that you guys do, you can tell whether or not there's been, you know, total maximum daily load, is that what it's called? You can tell if a field has been overspread, and you would want to know what the agreements are for that spreading, and whether or not that plot of land is showing up in more than one agreement, to try to dissect it. So I'd like to see us get a handle on this, and this is just one way.
So, yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Counter.
Yes, drawing back a question to yourself here before I make additional comments. What is the objection that you're seeing? Is it because it's the dollar amount that they're divulging the dollar amount, or is it because you're identifying the people? What's the objection to why they don't want these things divulged?
I think it's twofold. We already know the names because the names are in the NMP report, so that's already there. So it's the potential of dollar amounts of agreements, or you know, if somebody's paying somebody this amount, they come into the county and say, I want an open records request for all of the farms in this area, in this quadrant of the county, to see what they're all paying because I want more money. And my neighbor might be getting more money, but I don't know about it yet. So I'm gonna ask for the county for these agreements. And those are private business agreements. So I don't think the county has any right having those at all. I mean, we know who the names are already, so maybe there's something to be said for maybe revising the way the NMP is done so that we put it on the producers to prove that they've mailed everybody in there that they have a plot of land that they're spreading. I don't know if that's necessarily, I mean, short of us spending staff time to call each one of these and do that we don't have staff time for, I don't know what else we can do. I mean, even in the case of if we ask them for signed agreements, they can provide signed agreements. Are they forged or are they not? I mean, you're gonna go down this road either way. If you have one bad player or two bad players, they're gonna follow that down that road whether you have an signed agreement or not. So I don't know that we're really solving the problem.
But we can check on that. That gives us the opportunity to check. Here's what I'd say, very easy thing. Don't put the dollar amount on these agreements. All we need is a signed agreement. We don't need to know how much they pay. We need a signed agreement. Jason wants to spread manure on my land. I said, it's okay. That's all we need. It's 40 acres, whatever. So then there's nothing more than is already there in the open records. That problem solved.
If it would help the committee, we could, you know, at the public hearing, if that's the route that you choose to go, we could definitely have some sample agreements or some sample forms that the committee could endorse as what you want for that information.
And things like forgery are a whole nother criminal charge too, are they not? So, yeah, go ahead.
So when we're talking about CAFOs in specific, you know, they do their submission online to the DNR. Can we require them of that at that point? I don't think that we can require them additional on top of what the DNR already does, can we?
I believe we can. Yeah.
We can?
Yep.
Okay.
Because we're already getting their NMP plans, so, yep, so. It's kind of a duplicated review though right now, because the DNR staff are technically reviewing the NMP, and then our staff are also doing it, but we do it mainly in that to try to provide feedback to the producers and that about fields that may be, excessive or high. And then also a lot of times those conversations can lead into other programming, cost share projects, that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Connor.
Are the nutrient management plan information, worksheets, or however you're doing them, do they, what information do you have on them currently? Are they done by just the producer then, and then they're talking about all of the lands that they're using and give a legal description and work it that way?
Correct, and that, so it's got like the parcel number, and it's got their practice and what they're gonna be growing there for the year, and the application rates, tillage rates, all of that is part of that. Normally it's in the SNAP Plus program and that, or that's our preferred method, but there is some other, Excel spreadsheets and stuff and that with that information on them.
Would it be to our benefit then if they would add a line onto that, or if that form is amendable, to have that the owner of the property signs off on the nutrient management plan, and then it becomes notarized, so it can't be forged?
That's starting to talk a lot more legwork and process for the producers.
For them, but if they don't want to give you numbers, and you're concerned about being that they're gonna scam out on it, you need to know how, you gotta figure out ways that you're gonna get around that.
Yeah, I think notarizing is a little bit excessive, especially when there are criminal charges for forgery in Wisconsin. Am I correct? Yeah. So you find one bad actor and and they get prosecuted or charged, then that would probably, yeah. Supervisor Shirley, you had your hand up before Supervisor Brent Summer.
No, I lost my train of thought, but, the trend is that a lot of them are moving more to electronic submission of SNAP Plus. So I don't even know that without them sending in a separate file or doing something separately, we're not gonna be able to attach that to the SNAP Plus filing. So whatever we do is gonna be something totally separate from how they already submit.
Correct.
Well, the hard part with this too is that that landowner who's tenanting that land, if they are abusing it and they're doing damages, that landowner can be held just as liable as the farmer that's doing it. And that can amount, if they contaminate a whole bunch of people's wells, some of those plumes, you can be talking square miles of impacted area. You're talking about completely wiping people out. So their knowledge, to even know what's going in on these nutrient plans, is probably a help for liability, if anything else too.
I guess for this purpose, we're discussion on whether to reopen it or not. What indication do we have from I think I know where this is gonna go, but,
So do you need a motion that we reopen it?
It wouldn't be a motion because it's listed as discussion, but it'd be a request for a future agenda
Yeah.
item.
so I
I
guess I'm looking.
don't know where it's at. It's 2 and 2. I don't know where Supervisor Counter's at, so just ask him which.
I'm looking for the thumbs up. Let's do this like we did this morning. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I guess Supervisor Shirley will grant you one more. Huh?
To reopen, I would say no.
Okay.
To reopen, is that what the thumbs up are?
Yeah. So up is reopen, down is no. I'm gonna bail.
That's okay, I know where you're going.
I am on the fence, but, no, it doesn't. So I think we will have a future agenda item.
Okay, would you like it to be a public hearing? Are you ready to go that far? And would you like to have a sample agreement, or do you just want to actually see the text again before we do a hearing?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
The other question I would have, if we're opening it back up, does anybody else have anything that they want to change other than that that's already in there?
yeah, make sure you review it and there's nothing else you want to change when
Okay.
we do it this time. But it sounds like we want to see a sample text first.
Sample text,
So we'll do
sample
that.
agreement,
Yeah.
and have that on the August
Yep.
community development, okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Going on to the next item is consideration of reallocating remaining funds from the Glen Hills Peninsula Campground entrance and bathroom facility to Whispering Oaks Huff Cut restroom facility. And so in here, this is a project that was previously approved in the 2024 capital improvement plan for $920,000. And once we were awarded those funds and that staff went out and we applied for a DNR Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant, and we were awarded that grant last summer, and that grant amount was $249,500. And so due to those unexpected grant funds, and that basically we're coming out that we've got some extra funds left from that project, even though those funds weren't necessarily allocated to that project. And so one of the things and that we were considering was to put in a flush toilet and shower restroom building that would be a prefab concrete one. It comes in 4 parts. And so it would be a 4-stall. Back on the day use side of the Glen Hills facility, Vista Prairie Campground was built about 2 years ago. That was 15 sites, and they're group sites, so they're kind of clustered. And then last fall and this spring, Whispering Oaks was our old group camp area, and it just wasn't seeing much use. So that's where we added 12 new campsites with electric and water right there. And we're currently running about 50% occupancy in that throughout the whole summer. So it's doing good. We're renting those sites on a month-by-month basis. And this bathroom building would serve both of those campgrounds because it'd be in the middle of the two. There's currently a dump station there and a sanitary system, and the pipe for the sewer was planned and stubbed out for this future building. And we've also got power and water really close there, probably within, I'll call it 30 feet. And so this was kind of one of those projects that was aligned with the campground that was built a couple of years ago. Inflation costs are quite a bit more. I think it was in that $140,000 range, and that 2 years ago. And now we're looking at $194,000 for that building. Basically, with the remaining funds, we're going to be coming in pretty close to being able to cover that cost of that building. But Parks would also use any fund balance in that to take and offset those costs. So this is one of the things that we've kind of had in our mind and why we've been able to take and shave some of those dollars off the KIP project. And it really furthers the goal of having flush bathrooms and toilets and that within all of our campgrounds. So now all of our sites would have access to it. We might not fully comply with flush toilets in that for the health department because they got to be within 400 feet if they're dependent camper, so like a tent or like a pop-up that doesn't have a bathroom facility, we got to have a bathroom within 400 feet. Independents though, like RVs that have their own bathroom facilities, that 400 foot doesn't apply. But this would get us very, very close in that to comply. We'd only have one satellite toilet back in the backside of Peninsula back there in order to comply. Now there is some cost savings in that. I realize it's not nearly $200,000, but currently in that campground that was built 2 years ago, they have 5 satellite toilets. And so those 15 sites rely on those 5 satellites. It's about $50 to pump them, and we end up pumping them almost every week in that right now, just because of smell, because of capacity, and that kind of stuff. And then we've also got a vault toilet from the 70s in the old group site where we built the new sites in 2025, and that one would be removed. So if this is approved. So that's generally what the thought process is. If the Community Development Committee wants to move forward with it, and that it would require a budget amendment to be drafted for the admin committee and full county board. So. Any questions?
Questions, thoughts, comments, concerns? All right, we'll, entertain a motion. Who wants to make the motion? Supervisor Rice.
Well, I'll move that we accept the proposal, reconsideration of allocating remaining funds from Glen Hills Peninsula Campground entrance restroom facility to Whispering Oaks Huff Cut restroom facility.
Do I have a second? Supervisor Van Summeren. Any discussion? Supervisor Shirley.
So we're reallocating 200,000. We know the building's 194. Do we know what the associated other costs are roughly going to be?
The soft cost and that, not exactly.
Because we know that we also have electric, water, and sewer connections too, so.
Electric, water, and sewer connections and that, but I'm gonna guess in that's probably, so I think I got about 205,000 left over in the KIP. So that's about 10 grand, but that would be where we might need, $10,000 to $20,000 of fund balance or park budget, and that to bring in the water and electric and sewer, but, at the end of the day, basically that would be the only cost to the county would be that existing fund balance to get another big project completed. So the Huff Cut buildings, I will say, Pine Lake and that we just put in a vault toilet up there. We are able to give them our Sherwin-Williams paint colors and that the actual paint code. So they actually paint them and that are exact same colors. The building that we're building over on the peninsula side, that building was north of, 450,000. So this is a fairly cost-efficient option to get the same amount of, toilet stalls and showers, so.
Any other comments, questions? You good? Yep. All right, I think we're ready to entertain a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously, thank you. On to the financial report.
Any questions? It's in the packet. I got another meeting here in 11 hours, so. Yeah.
Anything crazy?
There isn't. I mean, I don't have anything in particular that I need to point out.
Only thing I would have, and that is in the parks account, we're running about $14,000 behind in park fees and rents, and that from last year. Some of that might be our changes in staffing levels, and now we're doing more spot checks instead of manning the window and stuff. So it is a year that we're trying something new, and so we're trying to be efficient with our staffing and our time, and so there could be some passes in that are being missed there. And also the other professional services line item is going red. And overall, that budget is also red, but we're also incurring these grant costs. And so once these projects get done, like Pine Lake, then I can reimburse and that from the DNR some of those funds. So you will see that number go really red, and but we will get those funds back as we get those grant dollars coming.
Any questions, thoughts, concerns on the financial report? No? All right. Now, future agenda items first. Future agenda items we have, obviously, Chapter 11. What else do we have?
We got the renewable energy ordinance.
Renewable energy, and then we have a CUP training, correct?
That CUP training, yeah, we should have time for that next month. Okay.
And then, and next month shouldn't be as crazy. Remember last July, we didn't have a meeting? Anyway.
Don't say it, I'm dreaming.
That's why it's last July, as in the past. Anything else you think of at the top of your head? No? All right, well, it sounds like we have a new water quality and conservation newsletter.
Yeah, so as part of the Water Quality Action Plan, our land and water staff put together with Adam Kostanek here an e-newsletter that people can subscribe to on our county website. So here's the little flyer for it. They've already got one newsletter drafted and put out. We're looking at probably doing it quarterly and that going forward, or if there's other information that we need to get out quicker, we would definitely push out more frequent than the quarterly if needed. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. We've got about 100 people signed up right now, so if we can get more people signed up, that definitely helps. And then I've just got a couple other announcements quick, Mr. Chair. So we got word on that in the last week here that St. Croix County is the next up for new floodplain mapping and that throughout the whole county. So that's a big deal because as the old paper maps were converted to the electronic portal online, the little black line before got pretty big and pretty wide. And in my opinion, it probably incorporated a lot of land that is not actually floodplain. We've got elevations that are 12 feet above the water level and that being floodplain. And not on the St. Croix. So that's a big thing. It's going to be a long project, but it comes at basically no cost to the county, except maybe a little bit of our staff time. And if we were to do that project, it'd be several $100,000 because they're going to be doing H&H analysis on a lot of streams and the Kinney and the Willow and stuff. So that's a big thing. And then in the next couple months here, the next 2 months really, and that we should have our new 3-inch aerial imagery and that out on the beacon site. And so we've already got the prelims on that. We're working with highway and the surveyors over there to take and make sure that we get it tied in correctly and that on the mapping so it's accurate. But yeah, within middle of September, we should have it, so.
Any other announcements from the committee? Nope. All right, that being said, the date of the next meeting is Thursday, August 21st, and we are adjourned.